time, now they put in the name just for clarity. They serve every wounded veteran out there. They began serving grievously injured Marines coming back from the war in Afghanistan, then, of course, in Iraq, and through the 20 years of the Long War. They have now, of course, embraced for years every wounded service member that they can help. And they have assisted 25,000 combat wounded, critically ill, and catastrophically injured service members, their veterans and families, with raising over $288 million in assistance. So today, I would love for you to call their number, which is, I will give it to you 1,000,000 times in the course of the day, 1-760-725-3680. Go to their website, thefund.org, www.thefund.org, or write to them at 825 College Boulevard, Suite 102, PMB 609, Peter Mary Baker, Oceanside, California, 92057. As always, I begin this show with Wendy Lethine and my friend Karen Hetherington. They have been there from the beginning. And when I say the beginning, around a kitchen table at Camp Pendleton, soon after the war had begun in Afghanistan, and they began to bring home the troops. I'll keep you posted on the news, but let's begin with the ladies. Those are the headlines, America, but it's Veterans Day. You know what I always do on Veterans Day? I always talk to the Injured Marine Semper Fi Fund, and the same folks run America's Fund. I'm joined again by Wendy Lethine, Vice President of Donor Relations and Outreach at the Semper Fi Fund, Karen Hetherington, Senior Case Manager for the Eastern Region, so we got West and East. Wendy and Karen, welcome back. I see we have now gotten to $288 million in assistance since the beginning of the fund, but Wendy, I've just added news stations by the gobful. This is the first time they've ever heard about the Semper Fi Fund. Really just the first time. Would you tell them the history? Because it's really remarkable.
I would love to, Hugh. But first of all, thanks so much for having us for this special tribute, because it's more important than ever to share our stories from our combat wounded, critically ill, and catastrophically injured service members whom the Semper Fi and America's Fund helps. We want to be here. We want to inspire and connect to your listeners. The Semper Fi in America's Fund was started back in 2004 when the first medevacs were coming in. And Karen Gunther was at the Naval Hospital at Camp Pendleton, saw these service members coming in and saw their needs. And believe it or not, we are one of those kitchen table stories. We sat around a kitchen table at Camp Pendleton and tried to figure out how to help our service members and their families. And from there, here we are 16 years later, and we're doing it like no other. We are proud of how we help, who the numbers of who we've helped. 25,000 combat wounded, critically ill, and catastrophically injured service members, veterans, and their families. Everything from being there at bedside to transition to recovery to their communities so that they can thrive.
Now, you made a change on me this year, Wendy. It's now thefund.org. That's new, and I want people to know that it's new. That's a big breath when you change something. We've been doing this for 15 years, and all of a sudden you throw me a curveball like that. I'm going to be it's going to take me some muscle memory time.
It will, but boy, it's a lot easier to say the fund.org than the Semper Fi and America's Fund.org. So
yes,
I want everyone will remember the fund.org.
The fund.org. The phone number is 760-725-3680. I'll give the snail mail address in just a second. I want people to know they have an A+ rating, one of two veterans charity. Only two in America have the A+ rating from Charity Watch. 4 stars from Charity Navigator for the past decade, which is an achievement only 2% of charities get. The Platinum Seal of Transparency from GuideStar. I'm always amazed because I run a not-for-profit. They have a 7% overhead. That's nothing in the world of overhead. And right now we have the Double Down for Veterans Match campaign from the Bob and Renee Parsons Foundation. What is the exact match, Wendy? Is it 10? I don't know.
Okay, so it's dollar for dollar. Your donations will be matched dollar for dollar from November 1st through December 31st, and up to 10 million.
That's what I wasn't reading right. It said 10K. I said, wait, the Parsons Foundation's a lot more generous than that, as I recall, for the Semper Fi, for the fund.org.
They are.
Karen Hetherington, case manager, senior case manager. I love talking to you every year. I've already talked to some of the guys that I taped earlier and actually got tears in my eyes, which only happens once or twice every time I do this show. I don't know how you have done this emotionally for 15 years. Tell me about it.
Hi, Hugh. Thanks for having me on today. I've done it because I love it. I love meeting the service members and their families, and it's extremely gratifying to see them go from being at their absolute worst after some pretty horrifying combat injuries through the whole arc of recovery back to, having families and finding new careers and integrating back into their communities. It's a great feeling to see that whole evolution.
And the number of people you have all helped, 25,000 combat wounded, critically ill, catastrophically injured service members. It's sort of overwhelming, and the American people don't know about the gaps. And you folks stand in the gap. You really do. For any service member who's been injured. And Wendy, since you were there at the beginning, I mean, you must not have had any ambition to do this, but what an astonishing work.
Well, we had the ambition to help, and we wanted to be there. And as the years went by, we see, more needs and more ways to help. And it has evolved into, the many, many programs that we have a comprehensive programs to help our service members.
And Karen, it's a strange year. It's COVID. And everybody who does what you do found it harder to get done what needs to be done. How have you coped with COVID for the fund.org team, Semper Fi Fund, America's Fund? How's it changed this year?
Well, COVID has been hard on everyone, but it's been particularly hard on our service members. It definitely worsens PTSD and anxiety. And, we've always tried to tailor our assistance to our service members' needs, and COVID is no different. We're there to help them with whatever COVID throws their way. We've helped out with loss of income when they or their spouse has lost a job. We're sending grocery cards and food packages to our most severely ill and injured, the ones that it would be a real health risk for them to go out to a grocery store. We're trying to help out our service members who are new to homeschooling. We're sending them educational activities and materials to help them with their homeschooling their children. So we're just trying to adapt to the current environment, and we're staying in very close contact with our service members and making sure they know we're here and that we're making sure they're okay.
And Wendy, I want to pick up on that before we go to the end of the break. You guys do so much. Team Semper Fi, Jinx McCain we'll hear about, neurofitness, alternative health solutions. But there are lots of ways in COVID that it's urgent that you stay fully funded because many of the invisible injuries are greatly worsened by isolation, and the virus is increasing isolation everywhere. I mean, how is leadership at the fund.org responding?
Well, we're there. We have had boots on the ground since the beginning. With 16 years of experience of helping in crisis, we were uniquely positioned to be able to get in there fast and connect with our service members. We are a family. They depend on us. We check in on them. It's not a very different situation, except for that they need us more, and they need the public support more.
You adapt. So listen, throughout the show today, I'll be giving you headlines, of course, breaking news, but remember, you can make a gift one-time or recurring support. You can hold a fundraiser. You can attend a fundraiser. You can donate your car. The Legacy Fund is out there. If you're making up your trust and estates, my brother-in-law was just telling me the Semper Fi Fund is in his trust and estate plan. Ask your employer. They will match your funds. The combined federal campaign is underway in some places. The United Way is underway in some places. Have I forgotten anything, Wendy?
And the Double Down for Veterans match is going on.
The Parsons Foundation is there to double down on anything you do. Thefund.org. I'll talk with Karen and Wendy at the end of this segment. Again, don't go anywhere, America. You'll hear some amazing stories, and I'll bring you the news as it happens as we go through today's Veteran Salute to the Injured Marine, Semper Fi Fund, and America's Fund, all found at thefund.org.
This is Owen Strain for townhall.com. In the film No Country for Old Men, a sheriff played by Tommy Lee Jones recounts a dream. He saw his father riding a horse going on ahead to make a fire somewhere out in all that dark and all that cold, and I knew that whenever I got there, he'd be there. The Coen brothers film wasn't political, but these words resonate today. Hopelessness abounds, lockdowns continue, marriages suffer, children languish, and politics divide. Many years ago, a wise man said to his followers that they should love their neighbor. Christ's words promise to galvanize us in the wake of a bitter election. We must love our neighbor in divided days. We should not fall prey to hate or insufferability. We should go on ahead and make a fire somewhere in the dark and work to prepare a better country for our children and for citizens yet to be born. I'm Owen Strain.
The Pepperdine Graduate School of Public Policy, impacting policy decisions today, preparing public leaders for tomorrow. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show. Trending now on America First with Sebastian GORKA.
Here's the tweet from this afternoon. Is anyone archiving these Trump sycophants for when they try to downplay or deny their complicity in the future? I foresee decent probability of many deleted tweets, writings, and photos in the future. Why are you cataloging supporters of the president? There's 70 million of us. What are you going to try and do, AOC? Because we're ready for you. Got that, Media Matters? Somebody who's really been upping his game, we always like him, but he's been getting even more heavy and meaty, is Greg Gutfeld. Let's play a little video cut from our buddy Greg on the issue at hand. Video cut 7, Eric.
I'm not sure if this is a first world or third world country anymore if we can't handle this. And the thing is, I keep thinking, all right, who made this bed? Let's say there isn't anything illegal going on. It's just mere incompetence. But the Democrats for 4 years have said that Trump is an apocalyptic threat to our nation, to our species. He has to go. So that's going to elevate suspicion among everybody else that likes Trump that there will be fraud. Because if you're that emotionally invested in getting rid of somebody, and especially the hard left who are emotionally invested in politics, they're going to do anything that they can. They will cheat. And your suspicions are valid because if they think he's Hitler, cheating is completely justified.
That last sentence is the key.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
David is in Tampa, Florida. David, you're on The Larry Elder Show.
Yeah, Larry, I used to believe in free and fair elections, but at this point I don't. I mean, Trump was just elected in the biggest landslide in the history of this country. He received more votes in this election on Tuesday than any presidential candidate has ever received up until now, up until, of course, Joe Biden. Mm-hmm. So Trump won the state of Florida by over 1 million. He got over 1 million more votes than he did 4 years ago in the state of Florida.
Right.
Am I to believe that Joe Biden, who can't draw more than 10 people to his rallies, can actually receive 800,000 more votes than Hillary Clinton did 4 years ago? This is an atrocity, and the American people are not going to stand for this. At the end of the day, they have stolen this. 138,339 ballots show up in the middle of the night at 4 a.m. in Michigan, and all of a sudden Joe Biden leads it. 122,000 show up in the state of Wisconsin in the middle of the night at 4 a.m., and all of a sudden now he leads it. He was up by over 700,000 votes in the state of Pennsylvania, and miraculously they're just finding just enough, just like Al Franken.
Good Veterans Day, America. Hugh Hewitt inside the Beltway. Before I go to our first interview with a wounded warrior, let me give you an update. In Arizona, they continue to count and President-elect Biden is ahead of President Trump by 12,813 votes, but with 46,000 left to count. In Georgia, Biden's lead is 14,148. Wisconsin is 20,557. Pennsylvania, 47,832. Nevada, 36,726. Absent some sort of legal miracle, it's Mount Everest times 2. Andrew McCarthy has a new column, which I just tweeted out, on the Pennsylvania lawsuit, which is basically the equivalent of jury nullification request by Team Trump. More on that tomorrow after I've read the briefs. Let's go to my first guest, and back to thefund.org. Joined now by Sergeant Brian McGuire, United States Army. As I've told you many, many years, Semper Fi Fund also runs America Fund. They help wounded warriors from all branches, and of course, Sergeant McGuire's Army. Good morning, Sergeant. Where do I find you this morning?
I'm in Mocksville, North Carolina.
Now, you're also in the middle of election 2020. I got to tell you, I'm talking to all the veterans who have got this election stuff swirling around them. Tell me, when were you injured and what were the nature of your injuries?
So I was injured in June of 2010 in Afghanistan. I stepped on an IED, which ultimately led to me being a double below-knee amputee.
Okay, so how did Semper Fi Fund and America's Fund help you out, Sergeant?
They've done quite a few things for us. They helped us out when we bought our house in redoing all the floors to make it easier for my wheelchair to roll around in here. Helped me purchase a vehicle. And probably one of the coolest things they've done is they facilitated a wheelchair-accessible crib.
Tell us about that. That's a new one for me.
Yeah, so you think about it like a normal crib nowadays, like sits on the floor, you got to reach in from the top, there's no more doors or anything on them. And, sitting in a wheelchair, I'm kind of, chest or shoulder level with the top of a crib now. So, reaching in and getting a baby out, kind of impossible, or at the very least, pretty unsafe. So the Semper Fi Fund, I don't know how they found this guy. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, unfortunately, who makes wheelchair accessible cribs. So it's actually raised up, custom built. The guy actually had me measure myself in a wheelchair. So I can roll underneath it, and then the doors open up like an old crib, so I can actually reach in and, grab my daughter out of the crib.
Well, how old is your daughter now?
The one the crib was originally for just turned 4 in August, but I've got a 5-month-old now too. So. Oh
dear, you're in the middle of COVID. You're in the middle of the election. You got a 4-year-old and a 5-month-old. So God bless you and your wife. Your wife has been on this journey with you. How is she doing?
She's doing pretty good. Talking about the middle of COVID and babies, we get to experience that through a hospital, which was not very fun.
Oh dear. Now, how did America's Fund find you? And you've told us what they've done. I mean, I haven't heard about the crib before. That's a new one. I always like to find out new ways that they work for you. But how did they find you, Sergeant?
I actually believe we got linked through the Independence Fund, which is another veterans organization. But I said America's Fund has definitely gone above and beyond for my family.
And so is it bureaucratic at all? I like to emphasize to people how it works so that they know what they are supporting actually gets it done.
Not on my side of it, not in the least. It's literally been a phone call to the case manager, and then they make stuff happen fast for guys that need it.
So, last question, Sergeant. What's ahead for you and your wife? What do you think life holds for you now besides taking care of these 2 daughters?
I've recently started a small business here at the house in my shop, and my wife's a teacher, so we're going to keep kind of rolling with those.
What's the new small business?
It's called the North Arrow Project, and basically some woodworking and some blacksmithing stuff.
Well, good luck with that. You got a website yet, Sergeant?
Yes, sir. It's northarrowproject.com.
northarrowproject.com. I'll go look that up. I appreciate all that you've done. I appreciate your joining me today. Have a great Veterans Day, and on behalf of everyone who's listening, thank you for all that you've done and will do for the country.
Thank you, sir.
Don't forget, the number is 1-760-725-3680, or you can go to www.thefund.org, www.thefund.org, or write to them at 825 College Boulevard, Suite 102, PMB 609, Oceanside, California, 92057. The Bob and Renee Parsons Foundation match is on now, so every dollar you give is matched. Every dollar you give. Stay tuned to the Veterans Day Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
Okay, there's two big fights. Number one, we have to be relentless. We have to be persistent. We have to be on top of all of the fraud and find the truth all across the country. We are not going to back down. We are going to continue to dive into some of these numbers. I have them up here, which they scream irregularities. Just breaking in the last 20 minutes, Fulton County in Georgia has just come out and said that there have been some errors with the election reporting, which could be significant in the vote tallies in Georgia. Quote, significant. So that's number one. We must go after the fraud and we must find the truth. But number two, it's very important. It is very clear that as the media tries to push this thing along, that as the media tries to coronate Joe Biden, that there might not be enough time left on the clock for us to expose this fraud before they actually inaugurate Joe Biden. That's a horrifying realization. Now, I'm not saying Joe Biden won. That is not what I'm saying. I'm saying there might not be enough time on the clock for us to expose all the fraud, but that is not an excuse for us to not look into the fraud and audit everything that's happening. So how do we counter 46? I put that in quotes. 46, because he would technically become the 46th president of the United States. Well, we have to have the belief and the commitment and the plan that despite what they throw at us at every single level, that Joe Biden and his radical socialist agenda is dead upon arrival in Washington, D.C. So where does that start? The Georgia Senate race. Where does it go into? The demonstrations, the rallies. Every single nominee that he puts up in front of the U.S. Senate for advice and consent, it must be challenged, must be cross-examined.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
This is Owen Strain for townhall.com. In the film No Country for Old Men, a sheriff played by Tommy Lee Jones recounts a dream. He saw his father riding a horse going on ahead to make a fire somewhere out in all that dark and all that cold, and I knew that whenever I got there, he'd be there. The Coen brothers film wasn't political, but these words resonate today. Hopelessness abounds, lockdowns continue, marriages suffer, children languish, and politics divide. Many years ago, a wise man said to his followers that they should love their neighbor. Christ's words promise to galvanize us in the wake of a bitter election. We must love our neighbor in divided days. We should not fall prey to hate or insufferability. We should go on ahead and make a fire somewhere in the dark and work to prepare a better country for our children and for citizens yet to be born. I'm Owen Strain.
The Pepperdine Graduate School of Public Policy, impacting policy decisions today, preparing public leaders for tomorrow. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
So, George, I don't know how widespread it is. I don't know if it'll change the outcome of the election. But why is everybody so scared just to have a fair election and find out? We gave Al Gore 37 days to run the process before we decided who was going to be president. Why would we not afford the 70.6 million Americans that voted for President Trump the same consideration? If Joe Biden really wants to unify this country, he would wait and make sure that we can prove we had a fair election.
Wow. And there's nothing that George Stephanopoulos can really say to that. You see, here's the thing. George Stephanopoulos doesn't get to determine the outcome. The courts do. Everybody gets their day in court, and that includes Donald Trump and the Trump campaign. And they want this debate. The Stephanopoulos of the world, the media mob, they all want us to be screaming about the election, the presidential Listen, the courts are going to decide that. We've got no... I'm not giving them what they want. You shouldn't either. Let's focus on what we know to be true. Serenity prayer. Have the courage and the wisdom to know the difference between what you can change and what you cannot. We're not judges. We're not the Supreme Court. The courts will decide.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
When you look at what the Democrats have been saying the last couple months, when your opposition tells you what they're going to do, maybe you should believe them. I mean, why we didn't have platoons of people in downtown Detroit and Milwaukee waiting for these criminals for what they've been doing. Just what the con job that has happened with all of a sudden we're winning by hundreds of thousands of ballots. They told us, they said it was going to be a red mirage. And then all of these mail-in ballots are going to come through. Well, what about cross-referencing it with voter registration, cross-referencing it with whether or not these people are alive or not? Let me just take a step back, though, Eric, and I want to just say one thing that's very positive. Republicans did really well. I mean, with all the nonsense that's happening, with the virus, the lockdowns, impeachment, the coup, all the misinformation, the disinformation, all this, we won Florida by 3 points.
Welcome back, America. Veterans Day is a tradition here on the Hugh Hewitt Show. I'm inside the Beltway this Veterans Day, but for 15 years I've always highlighted the Injured Marine Semper Fi and America's Fund, which you can find at thefund.org. I do so through the generous time commitments of veterans who've been grievously wounded in one way or another, and they just join me from wherever they are. But I also remind you at the beginning and the end of every segment that I can, you can just call in a donation at 1-760-725-3680. Or now they've renamed Semper Fi and America's Fund into simply the Fund to make it easier to remember. Go to thefund.org. They've raised $288 million, and they've spent $288 million on servicing the needs of 25,000 wounded warriors and their families in ways large and small that the VA and the branches cannot do. They're just the most remarkable organization, I think, in America. Started at a kitchen table, a few Marine Corps wives, after their husbands and sons had deployed to Afghanistan. They began to see the wounded returning to Camp Pendleton Hospital. They got together, and here we are 16 years later, and they may be the most admired charity in America for what they've done. And boy, a 7% overhead. I will keep an eye on the news. Don't forget it. I'm live. I'm inside the Beltway, and we know that yesterday the Supreme Court heard arguments on the Affordable Care Act. It does not appear it's not going to be struck down. I told you that during the hearings on Amy Coney Barrett, and there's clearly not 5 votes to strike the Obamacare down. There is a lot of pessimism within Team Trump, quiet pessimism that there is any way forward. They have filed a new lawsuit in Pennsylvania, which I'll get getting smart on today. Later in the day, I hope I will be posting for you the entire audio and video of my Matthew McConaughey interview from Monday, which was, the audio was garbled, and we've been working on it. But the most important thing today is to make sure you thank people who've served, and to really think and pray on those who've been lost forever, whose families carry that burden, and those who are recovering from wounds. It's been the long war. It is in its 20th year. Soon will be in its 21st year since 9/11. And I just can't tell you enough how much the fund.org helps people. Let's go back to fund.org right now. Joined now by Sergeant K.J. Stilling, United States Marine Corps. Good morning, Sergeant Stilling. Where do I find you today?
Good morning. Yes, thanks. I am way up north, Duluth, Minnesota.
Oh, you are up north. Now, I happen to have a live station in Duluth. People don't know that, but I mean, we're out there talking to Canada. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. Shoot, it's Friday, and weather here, we had snow a week or so ago, and it's kind of been nice this week, which is actually great because I'm doing an event tomorrow, and I think I'm going to be able to do it outside.
Tell us about what the Semper Fi Fund has done for you and what that event is, how it ties in. But first, actually, let me. I'm messing up. I'm talking to a gopher, so I'm messing up. When were you wounded? What were the natures of your injuries? People always want to know that before we talk about what you're doing.
Sure. Well, my time in service, I was in the Marine Corps from 03 to 09, 2003 to 2009. I deployed to Iraq twice. I deployed to the same place, Al-Qaim, which was out on the Syrian border out west. And and I didn't come home with any physical injuries. I came home with all four limbs and all my digits. And my injuries, I guess I would describe myself as trying to cope, trying to reintegrate into civilian life, and trying to just reinvent myself as being a person who experienced combat and coming to terms with it and moving on. I guess that would be the injury that I would describe for myself.
Well, I've got a friend who runs the Invisible Injuries program at the Pentagon for the Air Force, and I don't think a lot of Americans understand invisible injuries very well, Sergeant, but you just explained it. So how did Semper Fi Fund help with those?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'd say camaraderie, and it was years later after I left the Marine Corps that I finally got in touch with the Semper Fi Fund, and I didn't realize what I was missing so much at the time until after I got reconnected with men and women from service members and my brothers and sisters in arms, and that's what the Semper Fi Fund has provided for me, is connectivity to people who have experienced things like me. I guess I don't know if I could say more about what I was trying to or struggling to get out, is that I just kind of, when I came home from Iraq uninjured physically, I just felt like I didn't have an excuse, like, poor me, there's no room for that, I just need to pick myself up by the bootstraps. But the Semper Fi Fund has connected me with people who are experiencing their adversity in their life as well, and it brings people together. Back, like I said, back in that connected feeling of individuals that got your back, that have been through similar things that you have experienced.
Well, this is a vast network of warriors, and I only know it as a civilian from the outside, but I'm never not impressed with how the Semper Fi Fund or America's Fund bring people together through athletics, through horsemanship, through apprentice program. I think you're one of the sportsmen, aren't you?
Yes, and yes, I've been lucky enough to be involved with Team Semper Fi, which is the Semper Fi Fund and America's Fund sports program.
In which ways? They do a lot of different events, from hoops for men in wheelchairs to slalom skiing to triathlons to the Marine Corps marathon team. Which ones are you in?
Correct, yes. My first event was in Breckenridge, Colorado. I got to go to an event called Ski Spectacular, and it's adaptive skiing, and it's snowboarding, and it's all sorts of levels. From the elite level, I met some on my first event. I was privileged to meet some snowboarders who went on to Pyeongchang to represent Team USA at the U.S. Paralympics, and
when you say Breckenridge, though, I have an involuntary shudder, Sergeant. That's where I took a snowmobile into a tree, and I have a beautiful smile because they're all new teeth. So Breckenridge was not good to me, but I'm glad it was good for you. And that do you do triathlons as well?
Yes, triathlon, and I have done the Marine Corps Marathon 2 years. And tomorrow, what I mentioned earlier, tomorrow I'm doing the Semper Fi Fund and America's Fund Veterans Day virtual marathon.
That is terrific. I didn't know that they were doing that. You're the first one to tell me of the veterans I've talked to today. I know that they ran a virtual Marine Corps marathon inside the Beltway the weekend before the election, but you're doing it tomorrow in Minnesota?
I'm doing mine in Minnesota, and this is an event that's happening all over the country, virtually. People are doing it in their town, in their state.
Are you doing it on skates, or are you running?
This one I'm running.
Well, God bless you. That's going to be a little chilly. Wear the extra layer, Sergeant. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a great Veterans Day run tomorrow. What time are you looking for?
Oh, gosh, I just want to finish. It's been a hard year, and my training hasn't been the best, and this is just a moral victory to cross the finish line.
It always is for me, and for someone like you up in Duluth, that's 2 times, 5 times, 10 times the moral victory. Thank you for joining us. Have a great Veterans Day tomorrow, Sergeant.
Thanks, you as well.
I'm always amazed at people who run there's Grandma's Marathon up there, but the Marine Corps Marathon in Duluth. Wow. Hey, I got to give you the market update, even though it is Veterans Day and we're talking about the fund.org, and I do wish you would go there and contribute. I got to remind you about markets. Birch Gold sponsors this program. You can text my name, Hugh, Hugh, to 474747. That's the easiest way to get all the information from Birch Gold. They'll send you information on two things. If you just want to buy gold for your safety deposit box or your safe, they'll help you with that. Again, you text my name, Hugh, to 474747, or you go to hughgold.com. They'll also send you information on rolling over a portion of your IRA or 401k into physical precious metals. It's not a taxable event. It's still tax protected. It will grow in wealth as it accumulates price. It will be safely stored. It's not an ETF. It's not a share in a gold mine or anything like that. It's actually gold and silver bullion and coins. You can discuss with them the specifics, but I think everyone ought to have 10 to 25% of their wealth anchored in precious metals, and they ought to have it either within hand or have someone. If you haven't got the capacity to store it, Birch Gold can do it. And I trust these people. It's who I buy gold from. That's why it's called hughgold.com, and they sponsor the market look back every day at what happened yesterday. Another mixed market, second day in the row yesterday on Tuesday. The Dow was up 262 points, the NASDAQ was off 159, and the S&P was down 5. Now this morning overseas, Japan's up almost 2%, England's up 0.65%, Germany's up 0.42%. Light crude is back up at $42 as it anticipates the recovery of the international economy with the vaccine coming online. And gold is at $18.72 this morning. Dropped down a little bit, and then it's back up a little bit. Now it's dropped down a little bit. It's hovering right around 1900. Good area to get in. I think anything above 1400 is a good area to get in. I've never seen it drop below 1400. I've seen it go as high as 2200 this year, and I expect for the long range. Look, inflation is coming given what has happened to the stimulus. The 10-year Treasury is up to 0.97%, and I've been warning you, every day it goes up a little bit because the economy is bouncing back. They are pricing in the effective production and distribution of the Pfizer vaccine, and they realize that Americans will spring back. Now, I don't think they're going to change their online shopping habits. I don't think they're going to change their exercise habits. I don't think they're going to change much of anything, except they're going to reopen. Businesses are going to return to work because there are things you get at business you can't get anywhere else. But the economy is coming back, and when that happens and the velocity of money increases, that's when inflation arrives, and that's when you want some gold. So don't forget, hughgold.com, hughgold.com. I promised I'm going to do it every day until Georgia, even on Veterans Day. Here's Chuck Schumer on Saturday talking about the Georgia special election, which is on January 5, cut number 1.
Now we take Georgia, and then we change the world. Yeah! I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Mr. Schumer? Now we take Georgia, and then we change America.
So as you grow less optimistic and less hopeful about Donald Trump coming back, you do ought to get more focused on the Georgia 2 Senate races on which everything depends and get involved with them. I don't know, Georgia. I'm on 13 different affiliates in Georgia. I'm not going to run through them today. I'm not going to take any call today because I'm talking to the wounded warriors. But do remember, Georgia, you got to register before December 7th. Anyone who's going to be 18 on January 5 can register. All the college kids can register. All of the people at your church, people at work can register. Vote early when they're allowing early voting, and we got to elect Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue, re-elect actually David Perdue and Senator Loeffler too, on January the 5th. Time for ReliefFactor.com. I got a new package coming on today because that's good. It's my last pack, and Tony tells me it's coming, and that's good because ReliefFactor.com. I take it every day. I went 6 miles yesterday after the show. It's going to be raining all day in the Beltway as we get the tail end of a hurricane, but I carry Kirkman Resveratrol Omega. I take it every single morning at this time. I tell you I take it. You hear me take it. And if you're watching on YouTube or on Instagram or on the feed from HughHewitt.com, you see that I do it. Why? I've been doing it for years. It works. I carry Kirkman Resveratrol and Omega. They are the 4 natural supplements, the only ones I take. Talked it through with my doctors. They help the body in so many different ways, and they support the temporary relief of the minor aches and pains that come from. Yesterday was shin splints. I haven't had shin splints in 15 years, but yesterday, you never know why. You never know why. Coming right back with another amazing wounded warrior, thefund.org. Please don't forget thefund.org. You can call them at 760-725-3680.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
When you look at what the Democrats have been saying the last couple months, when your opposition tells you what they're going to do, maybe you should believe them. I mean, why we didn't have platoons of people in downtown Detroit and Milwaukee waiting for these criminals for what they've been doing. Just what the con job that has happened with all of a sudden we're winning by hundreds of thousands of ballots. They told us, they said it was going to be a red mirage. And then all of these mail-in ballots are going to come through. Well, what about cross-referencing with voter registration, cross-referencing it with whether or not these people are alive or not? Let me just take a step back, though, Eric, and I want to just say one thing that's very positive. Republicans did really well. I mean, with all the nonsense that's happening, with the virus, the lockdowns, impeachment, the coup, all the misinformation, the disinformation, all this, we won Florida by 3 points. That was not supposed to happen.
Right.
We are going to win North Carolina. We won Ohio convincingly. We won Iowa convincingly. And the Democrats spent a combined $410 million on failed races in the Senate. Republicans are poised to get 8 to 10 seats in the House, despite being outspent 12-1, Eric, 12-1. And insiders in the Republican House said they thought they were going to lose 10 seats. The DCCC has come out and they said it is a dumpster fire. They can't believe what's happened. We might flip seats in Illinois. We might flip 2 seats in Orange County. And we might have one of the strongest minorities Republicans have had in 30 years and almost guarantee that we'll take back the House in 2022.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
The new Trump voters, the newly minted Trump voters are prepared to, load the magazines, man the barricades. What does that mean about the state of the conservative movement to you, if that is a trend?
Well, I think it's telling about the shift that's happened in recent years, which is, and we saw this, throughout maybe the Brett Kavanaugh fight, a number of other fights that happened in recent years, where perhaps old guard conservatives, the kind of voices that are speaking from the mountaintop, would say, oh, well, let's let this one go, that kind of thing. They were willing to accede to a loss with honor, which is not honorable in my opinion. But anyway, that kind of aspect of the movement, they're still around, but that's not the attitude of the newer, younger people who view this as more of a confrontational moment. And I think that that's a big tell about the future of conservatism in the country, which is not going to shy away from confrontational culture war issues. It's going to call things as they see them.
Yes.
They're not going to be deferred at all by the media in a way that makes them not call socialism socialism. And that's not something that's going to go away. And neither is the president. Donald Trump is not going away, everybody. There's this mythical idea among all of his haters in the media that, oh, we don't have to pay attention to him if we get him out of the White House. Well, you may be able to finagle your way into that.
Welcome back, America. Overnight, the President-elect Biden's lead in Arizona narrowed to 12,813 votes. President Trump is hoping for the 46,000 votes left to count to flip Arizona, and it will matter definitely to a lot of down-ticket races, so we got to get the counting done and recounting done everywhere. But today we're focused on Veterans Day and thanking all the men and women who have served, especially those who have been wounded while they served. Lance Corporal Sean Adams of the United States Marine Corps joins me now, so back to fund.org. I'm going to talk now with Lance Corporal Sean Adams, United States Marine Corps. Corporal Adams, where do I find you this morning?
I'm in Maysville, Georgia.
Well, boy, you are the center of election 2020. You've got madness around you, but of course, compared to Afghanistan, that's nothing. Tell us when you were injured and how's your recovery going?
I was injured on February 10th of 2012, and I recovered Walter Reed for about 2 years, and from there I've been going from helping veterans out from one nonprofit to another, and that's kind of been my attack attack on my mental anguish. You know, you got to kind of control that chaos. And that's kind of it kind of helps me do that, is helping other veterans out. It kind of my own little therapy piece, you know.
What were the nature of your injuries, Corporal? I got some noise in the background, but I'm sure they'll just shut down that channel shortly. I hope you don't hear it. But what were the natures of your injury?
I lost both my legs above the knee. My right arm was tore up pretty hard. Got some nerve damage on my right arm as well. Lost about 40% of my vision, my left eye, and had the left side of my face got shattered, and I had to kind of reconstruct it. I still don't look any better. You know, I tried to get the doctor to help me out a little bit, but it didn't help out much at all. But yeah, that's pretty much the vast majority of my injuries.
Well, tell me, Corporal, what has Semper Fi Fund done for you? Because every Veterans Day, I've done this for 15 years. I talk to injured Marines that the Semper Fi Fund has helped out one way or the other in an attempt to get their name out there and get people to support them so they can support people like you've sacrificed a lot for the country. How'd they help you?
Well, where do you start with an organization like Semper Fi Fund, man? It's they've been there since the beginning. They've been in there since the first time I met Karen when she walked in the room and said, "Hey, we're here to help," and she meant that. They mean that as a whole. They helped with the vehicle assistance in the beginning. They helped with family matters past that. They helped with contributing to my home to helping me move forward as an entrepreneur with drag racing. And they've been helping with some minor details with that too.
Hey, stop there for a second, Corporal. We just heard your injuries. They're pretty significant. And you're doing drag racing?
Yes. Started a business back this past year, before COVID hit. And we were venturing into being a Vietnam Air Marine who's built a lot of cars that have run top 10 in the nation, and we formed MOD Racing, which stands for Mobility Over Disability. But I figured MOD looked pretty cool inside of the car. And we were looking at a Pro Mod. I got a 63 Vet Pro Mod that it'll run about 230 mile an hour.
Holy smokes.
Quarter mile. And we took it down to the chassis and rebuilt it. And we're in the process of the madness of COVID right now. We're still in the process of getting the engine put together for it. But, shipping and getting components have been a headache. But we were doing pretty well, with that. We're getting sponsorships and stuff like that. COVID hit, and all of a sudden, everything just went dead in the water. Racing in general did. So.
Corporal Adams, is there an online site for your drag racing effort?
We pretty much just have an Instagram right now. It's Adams Drag Racing, and you can go in there and see the progression of the car and what all we're kind of doing to get that thing ready to go down the track. At this point now for next year, due to the fact that COVID just got tracks shutting down all over the place.
Well, that is terrific, though. Adams Drag Racing on Instagram. I've talked to a lot of Marines who've been wounded over the years doing the Semper Fi Fund shows, but I've never heard of a drag racer before. That's a first, and that's kind of exciting, actually. If we can get out of the virus, when do you hope to race it?
Well, everything usually opens back up about, April time frame for drag, and we're looking at, getting on the track at that point for sure and have a debut of the car. We'll be running a little bit slower than 230. We'll probably run about 180 mile an hour at the first point, maybe 160 to 180. But we could push that car, like I said, on up into the 230 mile an hour range.
Corporal Adams, I hope you come back on Memorial Day and tell us how it went, because we're looking forward to that. Instagram, Adams Racing. Have I got that right, Corporal?
Yes, sir. It's Adams Drag Racing.
Adams Drag Racing on Instagram. Corporal, thank you. I appreciate it. A happy Veterans Day to you, and thank you for your service to this country.
Oh, thank you, sir.
This is the annual Semper Fi Fund show, and I want you to go to, it's now the Semper Fi Fund and America's Fund. You go call 760-725-3680. There's no better way to celebrate Veterans Day than a contribution to thefund.org, because they serve every wounded veteran, the Marines, the soldiers, the sailors, the airmen, the Coast Guardmen who've been injured in the long war and before. They have helped 25,000 injured soldiers, airmen, Marines, With $288 million that they've raised, they are the best at this in the country. Thefund.org. Very low overhead, very high supervision. You can trust thefund.org. I'll be back with hour 2 of this year, the 2020 Veterans Day Marine Corps Semper Fi Fund show. Stay tuned to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
Republican split, you'll really get a kick out of this. This is what are called news organizations. GOP splits over Trump's false election claims, unfounded fraud allegations. That's the headline. So what you understand is that our mainstream media do not even make a pretense any longer of being a news organization. This is as worrisome as any election result. What's the next? The fourth. Associated Press, which is supposed to be raw news, right? The Associated Press is GOP divided over Trump's baseless claims of election fraud. Even the next one, Fox News. Stephen Colbert says he's heartbroken by Trump's voter fraud. Let's see. Voter fraud speech. He tried to poison American democracy. Okay, that's Fox News, obviously taking a critical view, presumably. And anyway, then Al Jazeera, then NPR, Trump speech Thursday, false claims of fraud. Okay, now do you understand how the news is delivered to the American people? Even if the president is wrong, this is not the way you present an item. President charges fraud. That's the headline. That's the honest headline. President charges baseless fraud is an opinion. How do they know it's baseless? Really, how do they know it's baseless?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
Professor, how does this end?
Well, look, so here's the problem. We're all focused on the counts. And it looks like President Trump may lose Georgia to Joe Biden because of the count coming out of Atlanta. And then he may well lose Pennsylvania because of the count coming out of Philadelphia. I think he's going to pick up Arizona, but he may well lose Nevada out of the count coming out of Clark County. But the problem is the significant trigger event was not the count, but the verification of which ballots were legitimately cast in order to be counted. And Republicans in a lot of those jurisdictions were blocked out of the verification process, the signature verification process, the legitimacy of the absentee ballots that have been collected and harvested, and oftentimes in violation of state law. But once that threshold decision had been done and the ballot is separated from the envelope that allowed you to verify the legitimacy of the ballot, then you can't unravel the question of whether those votes were, which votes were illegitimate and cast or who they were cast for. And so unless the court would be willing to step in Pennsylvania and say, because we can't determine, we know that there were illegitimate votes cast, but we can't determine which way they went, and therefore we can't invalidate the election. Unless the court's willing to invalidate the election, as it did 2 years ago in North Carolina when there was illegal ballot harvesting that was conducted.
So you believe that when all the challenges, let's just stick to Pennsylvania for a moment, when all the legal challenges are exhausted, the U.S. Supreme Court will not likely even pick up the case?
I think that's right.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
Why is it that there was a 1,778% increase in voter registrations for voters over the age of 90 in Pennsylvania in the midst of a pandemic? I'm just asking questions. That's all we're doing here. And I think you guys can draw your own conclusions because you're pretty smart. But who else is asking these questions? Why is the Department of Justice not actually investigating all of this? How are there 100% of ballots that were dropped just for Joe Biden in Michigan? And so I have a lot of people that are emailing us and they say, we will win, we will win. I hope you're right, but don't be blinded by your own optimism, everybody. It's going to take you to do something about it. There are some very, very powerful, sinister, and malevolent forces at play here. The only way we win this is if we rise up in record numbers and our lawmakers actually start representing us and the Department of Justice does something about this. Maybe it'll happen, maybe won't. I'm not just going to be completely and totally, 100% cynical, but I will say that if we do not contest the fraud that is so clearly happening in front of us with all of this evidence, and this is not an exhaustive list, everybody. I have page after page after page after page of irregularities and people saying they were backdating ballots and postal service problems and voting locations that have gone down and irregularities and counties that really surprised, like counties that are not behaving the same as they should as we have here. I mean, there's a really good case. And some of you are saying, well, won't that stand up in a court of law?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
This is Owen Strain for townhall.com. In the film No Country for Old Men, a sheriff played by Tommy Lee Jones recounts a dream. He saw his father riding a horse going on ahead to make a fire somewhere out in all that dark and all that cold, and I knew that whenever I got there, he'd be there. The Coen brothers film wasn't political, but these words resonate today. Hopelessness abounds, lockdowns continue, marriages suffer, children languish, and politics divide. Many years ago, a wise man said to his followers that they should love their neighbor. Christ's words promise to galvanize us in the wake of a bitter election. We must love our neighbor in divided days. We should not fall prey to hate or insufferability. We should go on ahead and make a fire somewhere in the dark and work to prepare a better country for our children and for citizens yet to be born. I'm Owen Strain.
The Pepperdine Graduate School of Public Policy, impacting policy decisions today, preparing public leaders for tomorrow. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Biden is not officially or legally or in any way the president-elect. President Trump is challenging the results. The courts are going to make a determination. Only when the courts determine the outcome can anybody talk about the president-elect or the president being reelected. It's just, that's a fact. Here was South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem, who I am really, really liking more and more. Every time I hear this woman speak, every time I hear her represent the state of South Dakota, I get more inspired. Here she was with George Stephanopoulos over the weekend on ABC.
But the other thing that I think is going on here, George, is that this is all premature. This is a premature conversation because we have not finished counting votes. There are states that have not been called. And back in 2000, Al Gore was given his day in court. We should give President Trump his day in court, let the process unfold. Because, George, we live in a republic. We are a government that gets its power from the consent of the governed. That is the people. They give their consent on Election Day. Election Day needs to be fair, honest, and transparent. And we need to be sure that we had an honest election before we decide who gets to be in the White House the next 4 years.
Governor Noem, do you have any evidence that it wasn't an honest election? You heard about a tweet earlier this week saying it was rigged. Do you have any evidence at all of widespread fraud? I've spoken with Republican secretaries of state in Georgia, in Arizona. I've spoken to Republican officials across the country. They have come up with zero evidence of widespread fraud.
And that is not true. That is absolutely not true. People have signed legal documents, affidavits.
Joined now by Lance Corporal Patrick Kerrigan of the United States Marine Corps. Corporal Kerrigan, welcome. Good morning. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Where do we find you this morning?
In Oaklawn, Illinois.
Well, finally, we got a Northerner, a Big Ten person. Are you a football fan?
No, not really.
Okay. Well, I've been dealing with all these SEC people. So, Sergeant, when were you injured, and what were the nature of your injuries?
Oh, I'm not a sergeant.
Oh, corporal. Sorry about that. Corporal.
Oh, sorry, last corporal.
So, when were you wounded, and what was the nature of them?
It was in Afghanistan in 2009, 2010 time frame, and it was our vehicle ran over a IED.
Oh dear.
Sustained head injury, hurt my knees and my lower back.
So, how has Semper Fi Fund helped you in your recovery, Corporal?
A lot. They definitely been there through thick and thin with my family. They helped me with the service dog the first time. I was having trouble with the VA and having trouble adjusting to the civilian life. And my case manager at the time was like, "Oh, why don't we try a service dog?" And we rescued a dog named Zeus, and my case manager got in contact with a service dog trainer, and we just hit it off. It's been great.
Corporal Kerrigan, I like to explain to people every year when we have Veterans Day celebration of wounded warriors like yourself that service dogs really make a difference. And I got new affiliates. They've never heard the story before. Why is a service dog important to someone who suffered wounds like you have?
Service dog has many kind of like opportunities to really help bring out the struggles that you're dealing with and kind of confront it in a friendly way. So I had trouble dealing with memory issues and kind of stay focused at task. And my service dog would be like, "Hey, you're at the store to," they don't tell you like, "Hey, you're at the store to grab food" or anything like that. But I would make a list, and the service dog would kind of like look at me and be like, "Okay, stay on task, and let's just get through this together, and let's just get what you need to get, and then pay for it, and then kind of just head out." Like kind of opportunities like that. And then if I would be having anxiety, the dog knew right before it would happen, and his thing he would bump his nose against me, and then I would kind of just look at him and then kind of forgot what I was like going to have anxiety about. And then also just to kind of make you feel like a kid sometimes, you know. So when my service dog was off duty, we would just play and just have a good time.
Zeus sounds like an amazing dog. What kind of breed is he?
He was half golden retriever and half husky.
Well, that's a great breed.
Yeah, beautiful dog.
Not every wounded warrior gets a service dog, right? That's something that Semper Fi Fund steps in. I don't know if the VA supports that program, but I know Semper Fi Fund does.
Yeah, they definitely did. My case manager at the time was like, you know, where are you in life? And I kind of didn't know. So she got in contact with a service dog trainer, and they talked, and we kind of made a plan.
So my last question, Corporal Kerrigan, we're in the middle of the virus shutdown. Has Semper Fi Fund stayed true to you during this shutdown? Are they still in touch? They still doing it for you?
Oh, definitely. Yes. I would, like I said before, thick and thin, really. It's definitely like a family, and it's a family I can definitely rely on. They helped me with my car payment that I was struggling with, and they definitely stepped in. It's like how family does, and really took care of me.
Lance Corporal Patrick Kerrigan, have a great Veterans Day. Thank you for joining us to explain that a little bit and give Zeus our love as well. That just sounds terrific, and I appreciate your taking the time with me this morning.
Thank you so much.
You know, the fact that the virus is all around us on this Veterans Day should actually amplify the needs of the Semper Fi Fund and America's Fund, thefund.org, because so much of what they do, I'll talk to Wendy and who am I talking to? Karen at the end of this show as well about what they're doing in the virus era. But as we meet on 11/11/20, and you know, we got lots of headlines about the election. You know, lawsuits are ongoing. A lawsuit was filed in Pennsylvania by President Trump last night. Andrew McCarthy's got a great column on it. The margin in Arizona narrowed overnight. still technically possible for the president to win. Unlikely, but a lot more possible than flipping Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, or Nevada. Arizona could still be in the president's column, and it matters a lot to the down ballot races. But on Veterans Day, it isn't a day for red and blue. It's a day for red, white, and blue, and a day to remember everyone, especially these wounded warriors. And I've told you the same critical mission has a new name now, Semper Fi and America's Fund. And it used to be the Semper Fi Fund. Now it is officially Semper Fi and America's Fund because their mission, which began at a kitchen table at Camp Pendleton, has expanded out to all of the service members. And so yesterday, all eyes are on the Supreme Court as they argue about Obamacare, and later today, the cable shooters will be fixated on the president, what he says, doesn't say, concede, doesn't concede, he's not going to concede. And it's going to be fixated on voter fraud and all that stuff. And these guys are at physical therapy. These women are out with their service dog, learning how to command, control, and be served by them. And they're competing in virtual sports events or at the Jinx McCain. The fund.org has an A+ rating from Charity Watch. There are only 2 veteran not-for-profits that have that rating. Semper Fi Fund is one of them. They have 4 stars from Charity Navigator for the past 10 years, an achievement only 2% of charities achieves. They have the Platinum Seal of Transparency from GuideStar. If you take a look at Semper Fi and America's Fund board, you'll know why. You got people like retired chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Marine Corps 4-star General James Dunford, on that board, and lots of commandants, as he was as well. Their average overhead from inception is 7%, which is just remarkable. They just give. They're not in the salary business for consultants. They're not grifting off of the good-heartedness of the American people. Right now, they have the Double Down for Veterans match. The Bob and Renee Parsons Foundation is matching dollar for dollar anything you call in to 760-725-3680. And this is the time of the show I give you the snail mail address so you can write it down. I give it to you slowly. 825 College Boulevard. 825 College Boulevard. Suite 102. Suite 102. PMB 609. That's P as in Peter, M as in Mary, B as in Bill. PMB 609. Oceanside. Beautiful Oceanside, California, 92057. If you write on that check Semper Fi or Semper Fi and America's Fund, it'll get deposited. And Wendy has told me over the years they've gotten some very nice surprise checks from old-fashioned people. But don't forget legacy planning. I mentioned to you my retired brother-in-law, who's a Lieutenant Colonel Marine, has already included the Semper Fi Fund in his estate planning. You can do so too. They have helped with meals, groceries, provisions, financial assistance for lost wages, for caregivers, basic living expenses, transportation costs and transportation vehicles, off-road wheelchairs. They do stuff. They provide educational materials to assist service members and caregivers now with homeschooling. They're doing a lot of that because all of a sudden all these wounded warriors had the kids staying home from school, and their spouse or caregiver helping with the kids. Bedside financial help, adaptive housing, adaptive transportation, specialized equipment, caregiver support. They do retreats for caregivers. The Tim and Sandy Day Canine Companion Program. They have this COVID program underway. Veteran of Veteran, Career and Education Assistant, Veteran and Unit Reunions, Semper Fi Fund Odyssey. They have wellness programs. Team Semper Fi is enormous. Team America's Fund is enormous. People compete. They get back into the thing of things on Veterans Day from their wounds by competing. Jinx McCain Horsemanship. We'll talk with one of the cowboys later. They took a wounded Marine, turned him into a cowboy. I love talking to one or two of those every year we do this. Neurofitness. They got to get some high-tech medical devices for those who are genuinely, completely have to relearn how to live. Therapeutic arts. They rely on individuals, communities, foundations, corporations for funding. They receive zero, zip government funding. It's all you. It's all the private sector. Now, if you are going to make a gift, check with your employer to see if they have a match. And if you're working for the federal government, you can give via the combined federal campaign to Semper Fi and America's Fund or thefund.org. And you can give one-time or recurring support. You can hold a fundraiser. You can attend a fundraiser. You can donate a car. I told you you can do the Legacy Fund. Don't forget, Double Down for Veterans Match from the Renee and Bob Parsons Foundation is underway right now. This Veterans Day, 2020, Put aside the acrimony of the last year, no matter whether you are red or blue, and be red, white, or blue, and support the wounded warriors in America via the Semper Fi and America's Fund at thefund.org or call them 760-725-3680. 760-725-3680. And come right back. I'm live inside the Beltway on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Wait a minute. Why, if we saw voter fraud and if we have examples of voter fraud, why wouldn't that work out? And you're saying the states have that much power.
Well, a couple things. Here's what can happen is this. Yeah, states do have a lot. They have almost all the power, but the federal government's not just an innocent bystander. The DOJ can come in and prosecute voter fraud, and they should. The DOJ Civil Rights Division can come and investigate whether or not there was widespread shenanigans. And remember, state officials can be investigated as well. Here's the thing is that these county recorders have gone to jail before. Vote counters go to jail. That's not above, the DOJ can go do that. And so that's what
don't you think that they will and had better do that for the sake of the nation?
I don't know what Bill Barr is doing, Eric. Okay. I don't know where the Durham report is. I don't know where the indictments are. I don't know why Antifa people aren't being arrested. And I don't know why the DOJ is not going into these states and at least saying, we have eyes on you. Okay. I don't know what, because I'm going to tell you right now, the Michigan, election security division is not going to prosecute any of that. So here's what can happen though. If the DOJ starts to open up a lot of these cases, it makes it a lot easier for the Trump campaign to then file a lawsuit with a circuit court judge or a federal judge outside of the DOJ, so then the judge can get involved in exactly what can happen. Now, judges have almost unilateral power now in these elections, okay? The judges are the final voice. Now, if the Democrats in Michigan don't like it, they can appeal to the Supreme Court. They might just kick it back down to the federal court. For example, if the DOJ starts to make a case in Michigan that there's a lot of voter fraud and voter cheating, the Trump campaign's already filed a lawsuit in Michigan.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
This is Owen Strain for townhall.com. In the film No Country for Old Men, a sheriff played by Tommy Lee Jones recounts a dream. He saw his father riding a horse going on ahead to make a fire somewhere out in all that dark and all that cold, and I knew that whenever I got there, he'd be there. The Coen brothers film wasn't political, but these words resonate today. Hopelessness abounds, lockdowns continue, marriages suffer, children languish, and politics divide. Many years ago, a wise man said to his followers that they should love their neighbor. Christ's words promise to galvanize us in the wake of a bitter election. We must love our neighbor in divided days. We should not fall prey to hate or insufferability. We should go on ahead and make a fire somewhere in the dark and work to prepare a better country for our children and for citizens yet to be born. I'm Owen Strain.
The Pepperdine Graduate School of Public Policy, impacting policy decisions today, preparing public leaders for tomorrow. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show. Trending now on America First with Sebastian GORKA.
Here's the tweet from this afternoon. Is anyone archiving these Trump sycophants for when they try to downplay or deny their complicity in the future? I foresee decent probability of many deleted tweets, writings, and photos in the future. Why are you cataloging supporters of the president? There's 70 million of us. What are you going to try and do, AOC?
Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt inside the Beltway on this Veterans Day. Continuing my conversation with wounded warriors, I want to talk now with Sergeant Reuben Burton of the United States Marine Corps. Back to the fund.org. Joined now by Sergeant Reuben Burton, United States Marine Corps. Good morning, Sergeant. Where do I find you today?
I'm in Rockford, Michigan, Hugh.
Oh, dear, you're in the state up north. I'm an Ohio State guy. Oh, dear. I told one of your colleagues who've been on earlier today, Coach Meyer listens to this show occasionally, and I'm sure he's going to listen to you, even though you're from the state up north. Do you root for the bad guys up there?
I stay pretty neutral in it. I got a family that root for both sides, so I'm usually too busy to follow sports as much as I'd like, so I just stay pretty neutral.
All right, that's a good way to go. Tell me, Sergeant, when were you wounded and the nature of your injuries? How goes your recovery?
Yeah, it's going well. I've had a variety of issues, some TBI and PTSD, and then a variety of joint issues through my whole time in the service. But it's going well. I've kept a positive outlook, and I've found some good outlets for that are good therapeutic outlets that have helped me along immensely. And that is part of why I'm here today. Is partly just to, say thank you to the Semper Fi Fund and the Jinx McCain Horsemanship Program, which were pretty instrumental in that for me.
Well, we want to say thank you to you and to Semper Fi Fund, but you're the first vet that I've had today, first Marine today, who's done the Jinx McCain Horsemanship Program. Would you tell people about that? Because I got news stations every year. We've been doing this for 15 years, but a lot of people just heard Jinx McCain for the first time.
Sure. Yeah, it's an absolutely awesome program. What they do is veterans apply for the program, and then they once you're accepted, they take you out to various ranches, historic ranches, where you get to essentially be a cowboy, and they give you basic training on horsemanship, and then as you progress through some of their clinics, you get more and more advanced training. You learn how to rope, you learn how all kinds of aspects of cattle work and being a cowboy, and it's really cool. You just get away from your environment, and you're out on a ranch, out in the middle of nowhere with no cell phone service, maybe for a week. With some really good people. The foreman of the program, John Mayer, is great. Everyone who hosts the veterans at the ranches are just good people, salt of the earth, and they really restore your faith in humanity. A lot of veterans kind of lose that. It's just they surround you with good people, and you get to do some awesome things. You ride in the mountains. At night, you take time and you work on leather work and leather crafting, and they teach you how to do that. I've made saddlebags and other things like that, and it's a phenomenal program.
Sergeant Burton, I got to ask: when you were on deployment, combat deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan as a scout sniper, did you ever imagine you were a cowboying was in your future?
No, it was kind of a dream. It's something that I think a lot of guys think about. That I like that kind of old-fashioned lifestyle, and it's a pretty cool thing. I hadn't anticipated doing it, but I'm really grateful that I've had the opportunity to do that now.
And how often do you get to go, Sergeant? I just want people to know that it's out there, and if there's a wounded warrior listening and it rings a bell, the Semper Fi Fund and the Americas Fund is a place to go and investigate it. How many of them are of sort of warrior cowboys are there out there now?
I believe there's about 300 or 400 that are that ride in the program, and it's all up to the veteran. They provide numerous events a year, probably about 10 or 12 events. They send out a call for riders, and then you get to sign up. And then if you make the cut, they can only take so many people, but you get to go on out on that experience. And the Semper Fi Fund and the Jinx McCain Horsemanship provide airfare and all the transportation and logistics costs to get you where you're going. But you can do a couple a year, or you can do as little as one a year, or you can take a year off if you're busy, or you got work if you can't get away from work, or whatever it may be. So it's really up to the veteran, and there's some really cool opportunities to pursue if you have the time to do it and if you want to do it.
That is terrific, Sergeant Burton. Thank you for telling us about that. Thank you for coming on this morning. A great Veterans Day to you, and thank you for all you've done for the country and continue to do.
Absolutely. Thank you, Hugh.
Remember, go back to thefund.org to contribute, thefund.org, or call them at 760-725-3680. 760-725-3680. I'm live inside the Beltway talking with incredible wounded warriors served by Semper Fi and America's Fund at thefund.org, as I do every Veterans Day for the past 15 years, and bringing you news as it occurs. I got my eyes on the headlines even as I'm talking to these amazing Americans. Stay tuned to the Veterans Day Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian GORKA.
Here's the tweet from this afternoon. Is anyone archiving these Trump sycophants for when they try to downplay or deny their complicity in the future? I foresee decent probability of many deleted tweets, writings, and photos in the future. Why are you cataloging supporters of the president? There's 70 million of us. What are you going to try and do, AOC? Because we're ready for you. Got that, Media Matters? Somebody who's really been upping his game, we always like him, but he's been getting even more heavy and meaty, is Greg Gutfeld. Let's play a little video cut from our buddy Greg on the issue at hand. Video cut 7, Eric.
I'm not sure if this is a first world or third world country anymore, if we can't handle this. And the thing is, I keep thinking, all right, who made this bed? Let's say there isn't anything illegal going on. It's just mere incompetence. But the Democrats for 4 years have said that Trump is an apocalyptic threat to our nation, to our species. He has to go. So that's going to elevate suspicion among everybody else that likes Trump that there will be fraud. Because if you're that emotionally invested in getting rid of somebody, and especially the hard left who are emotionally invested in politics, they're going to do anything that they can. They will cheat. And your suspicions are valid because if they think he's Hitler, cheating is completely justified.
That last sentence is the key.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
David is in Tampa, Florida. David, you're on The Larry Elder Show.
Yeah, Larry, I used to believe in free and fair elections, but at this point I don't. I mean, Trump was just elected in the biggest landslide in the history of this country. He received more votes in this election on Tuesday than any presidential candidate has ever received up until now, up until, of course, Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm.
So Trump won the state of Florida by over 1 million. He got over 1 million more votes than he did 4 years ago in the state of Florida.
Right.
Am I to believe that Joe Biden, who can't draw more than 10 people to his rallies, can actually receive 800,000 more votes than Hillary Clinton did 4 years ago? This is an atrocity, and the American people are not going to stand for this. At the end of the day, they have stolen this. 138,339 ballots show up in the middle of the night at 4 a.m. in Michigan, and all of a sudden Joe Biden leads it. 122,000 show up in the state of Wisconsin in the middle of the night at 4 a.m., and all of a sudden now he leads it. He was up by over 700,000 votes in the state of Pennsylvania, and miraculously, they're just finding just enough, just like Al Franken found in 2008 in Minnesota Senate race.
And David, imagine if this were the shoe on the other foot.
Actually, back in 30 seconds.
Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt inside the Beltway on Veterans Day. The year, annually on this day each year, I talk to the wounded warriors who've been helped by the Semper Fi and America's Fund. Back to the Fund's guests. Joined now by Gunnery Sergeant Trey Fagan, United States Marine Corps. Gunny Fagan, good morning. Thank you for joining me on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Where do I find you today?
Good morning, sir. I'm sitting here in Northeast Florida, Keystone Heights. On my farm with my family.
I hope you're not a Gators fan or a Seminole fan. Are you another SEC person?
Oh, I am an SEC person. I'm a Gators fan. I grew up in Gainesville, Florida.
You know, Coach Meyer is a listener to this show, so nothing bad about Coach Meyer. You know, he came over to the light and goes to work for Ohio State now every morning, but I know he loves his Florida friends. Tell me something, Gunny. When and where were you injured? How badly? What's the nature of the recovery like?
So 2013, I returned home from my last combat deployment, and soon after that, I was diagnosed with PTSD and traumatic brain injury. I had multiple combat deployments, and which in turn had me retiring in 2016. I had a great job coming up to this January. I was making $70,000 a year, but it wasn't healthy with my anxiety, PTSD, and TBI. It wasn't safe for me to be in that position, so I decided to step away. And in January, I found comfort and peace at home on my 20-acre farm, but we needed to provide some compensation. So I started pasture poultry, raising Cornish cross and quail and turkey and pigs and we started a little farm business, and that's when Semper Fi contacted me.
That is terrific, Gunny. You know, that's not consistent with my knowledge of Gunny. I had a son go through OCS Navy. And of course, he had a gunny sergeant. Yes, and it's, the quintessential farmer George Washington thing is not with what I heard. How's it going?
Well, it's amazing. Now it was a lot of questions and uncertainty and worry and stress in the beginning, and not knowing. I mean, leaving a $70,000 a year job and having 4 kids and a wife to support, we were worried, to say the least. But we had faith that it was the right decision, and it I think it was a God thing. But at the same time, we were making this transition. Semper Fi checked in with me, and I had been in contact with them over the years since I retired, and they just basically reached out and said, "Hey, we wanted to check in and make sure everything was going good." And that's when I shared with them what I decided to do with the farm. And they said, "Hey, describe to us what you have going on with the farm." And I did. I told them about our pasture poultry, and my wife milks our goats and makes products from the goat milk, soaps and whatnot. And we're trying to make a living off of it. And they said, well, it just so happens that fits into a apprenticeship program that we have, and they have been just amazing. I'm still speechless, the things that they have provided to get our farm business up and running and self-sufficient. It's been amazing.
Well, Gunny Fagan, I'm kind of speechless. My notes tell me you were Force Recon special operator, raider, sniper, and that you served from 99 through, 2012, 2013, 2014. So that's a lot of service and a heck of a transition. And it sounds like you're at peace and thriving. And that's just great. Is the family doing well?
Oh, the family's doing great. I saw a quote the other day about money versus passion and whatnot, but there's no better joy in the world than to get up in the morning and be able to do life with my kids and feed the animals and experience them learning to do things for the first time, and at the same time being able to provide for my family while we do that. So it's a true blessing. And Semper Fi, I've been working with a coordinator named BJ, and it's amazing the relationship that we've formed. And he answers a phone as soon as I give him a call, and he makes sure everything is going good on the farm and with the business.
Well, Gunny Sergeant Trey Fagan, I appreciate your time today, and thank you for all that you've done for the country, and continued Godspeed in your recovery, and I hope to talk to you again in the future.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Joined now by Sergeant Caleb White, United States Marine Corps. Good morning, Sergeant. Where do I find you today?
Mr. Hewitt, good morning. I'm out in beautiful Austin, Texas.
Oh, my goodness. I got a Longhorn. Don't tell me you're a Longhorn fan, are you?
Well, I'm technically an immigrant from California. Keep it on the low, though. I don't know if you know that. So,
which part of California, Sergeant?
I was from Orange County.
You and I we both spent our time there. I don't know where you went to high school. You may have crossed paths with my boys. Tell me, when were you wounded and how are you doing?
I didn't receive a physical wound as much as just having some mental stuff after the military. I was in Afghanistan in 2010. I did a couple of other smaller deployments that weren't combat deployments, still in the military.
And so how has Semper Fi Fund helped you? Oh, 2016.
I don't know. How much time do you have to answer that question?
Yeah, as much as you need. Yeah.
Yeah, all right. So Semper Fi Fund, after I got medically separated, I got set up with them, and after that, they just would consistently check in with me and see how I was doing, and see how they could help. I mean, I never really liked to ask for help, which is, part of the reason I had so many problems. But when they'd just call and check in with me, and then they'd kind of figure out what I was doing, and then they're like, well, we can help with this, and, just kind of see what they could do for me. So, they helped with raise some money for the funding of the training of my service dogs. They set me up with some lenses for my camera for photography, which is actually really beneficial for kind of getting my mind focused. And then when I wanted to get more physical activity, they actually set me up with Team Semper Fi, a sports team, and helped me get a bike. And then unfortunately, I'm pretty much allergic to every tree out here in Texas, so I wasn't able to do that. So they're like, well, we need to get you doing something else. And what do you like to do? I'm like, well, I'm opening up a little wood shop with me and my wife. We wanted to do it for 10 years now. And they're like, oh, hold the phone. Let me talk to somebody. So they got me set up with the AP, the apprenticeship program. And I mean, I couldn't really do it without them. I can't really say how grateful I am, because they've been setting me up with equipment. They've been setting me up with classes on anything from accounting to financial management to marketing your business. They have other well-known woodworkers on there to just kind of give us advice and ask questions, and they're just always there, always available. And I never really say how thankful I am for that. No.
Sergeant White, what's the name of the woodworking business? How do people find it? People who always listen to this show, they always want to find the apprentice program businesses that have been started via the Wounded Warrior and the Semper Fi Fund. Which one? How do we find it?
Well, my company name is White Oaks, or White Oaks Designs. We also, I do believe the apprenticeship program has a website, Semper Fi Fund, I'm sure they have a website for the apprenticeship program that may have a list. I'm not entirely sure.
But they want to find White Oaks Designs. Is that on the web, or is that at Instagram or Facebook or any place like that?
We don't have a website yet, but we do have a Facebook page at White Oaks, and we are working on Instagram as well. So
White Oaks.
Unfortunately, I didn't spend too much time making sawdust and not enough time on the computer. So that's still all in the works.
How do you feel? How's the family doing? I know you're married. You got 2 kids. How is everyone doing as the recovery progresses, as the business opens up?
Everyone doing with I'm sorry, what was the question?
How's everyone doing? Is everyone feeling good and about the future?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. My wife and I are just so happy to finally be doing this together. And, there's, besides the small complex and design ideas, everything's going great. I get the boy, I have a 6-year-old son who's, extremely intelligent. I don't know how, because he definitely didn't get it from me. But he actually took the gifted exam, and he's 6 years old and doing like 5th grade homework for science and math. So I got him out there and with me in the garage, and have him do the math for me on those measurements, because
He'll be running it. So. He'll be running it soon. And Sergeant White, thank you. Have a great Veterans Day. I appreciate your good words on behalf of the Semper Fi Fund, and I appreciate all you've done for this country. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We will be back with more from the Semper Fi Injured Marine Fund. Their phone number is 760-725-3680. Any donation you make will be doubled. Time to check the markets on this Veterans Day. The markets are open. A lot of you have the day off. I don't have the day off. You don't have the day off. Well, the markets don't have the day off, and so I checked the markets. Brought to you by AndrewandTodd.com, America's best lenders. They are with Sierra Pacific Mortgage. I suggest you go to their website and answer a couple of questions if you're considering buying a house, or helping your son or daughter buy a house, or helping your grandson or granddaughter buy a house. Lowest interest rates in history, but not for long. They'll still be good, but they're not going to be lowest. The 10-year Treasury is up to 0.97 this morning. Going to break into the 3-digit territory for the first time since the virus arrived, I think, maybe next week. And that's because the vaccine is on the horizon. And so the cost of buying a house will rise, and the opportunity to get money out of your house at a low interest rate will decline. So you want to call Andrew and Todd today, 888-888-1172. They got a terrific team. They lend north to south, east to west. They lend all over the United States of America. AndrewandTodd.com. If you need a realtor, they will hook you up with a realtor. If you need a wealth manager going to take money out of your house to get it aside for college at very low interest rates, because you got to make expenditures, you want to remodel your house, they will help you. But you got to get started at AndrewandTodd.com. Yesterday, Tuesday, the Dow was down 262. Dow was up 262 points. The NASDAQ was off 159. Gosh, I'm slow this morning talking to these veterans. It makes me I get my head where their head is. And the S&P was down 5. This morning, though, in Japan, up 1.78%. Almost a percent hike in England, almost a 0.5% in Germany as the world rallies around news of the vaccine. Light crude is up to 42. Interest rates are rising, so go to AndrewandTodd.com. Don't forget as well, I took my relief factor in hour number 1. I now have an empty bag. Empty bag. No supplies in sight. Luckily, they're on the way, because I take it every single day in the first hour, and I remind you in hours 2 and 3, so you don't leave home without it. ReliefFactor.com, $19.95 gets you a 3-week starter pack. If you hurt anyway this morning and you thought I'll reach for the aspirin or the ibuprofen or the Advil or the Aleve, don't. Try ReliefFactor.com. Some of you, like me, can't take NSAIDs, and some of you, like me, don't like Tylenol. So you should try ReliefFactor.com. Because everyone gets older, and everyone who exercises has aches and pains. I told you I had shin splints yesterday after a 6-mile, 2 days of 6-milers, and I did some hills, and that's what happens. But ReliefFactor.com to the rescue, as it will be for you if you get on board with the tens of thousands of other people who use it. Coming right back with another amazing wounded warrior served by the Semper Fi and America's Fund. Go to thefund.org to contribute to it, and come right back to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
When you look at what the Democrats have been saying the last couple months, when your opposition tells you what they're going to do, maybe you should believe them. I mean, why we didn't have platoons of people in downtown Detroit and Milwaukee waiting for these criminals for what they've been doing. Just what the con job that has happened with all of a sudden we're winning by hundreds of thousands of ballots. They told us, they said it was going to be a red mirage. And then all of these mail-in ballots are going to come through. Well, what about cross-referencing with voter registration, cross-referencing it with whether or not these people are alive or not? Let me just take a step back, though, Eric, and I want to just say one thing that's very positive. Republicans did really well. I mean, with all the nonsense that's happening, with the virus, the lockdowns, impeachment, the coup, all the misinformation, the disinformation, all this, we won Florida by 3 points. That was not supposed to happen.
Right.
We are going to win North Carolina. We won Ohio convincingly. We won Iowa convincingly. And the Democrats spent a combined $410 million on failed races in the Senate. Republicans are poised to get 8 to 10 seats in the House, despite being outspent 12-1, Eric, 12-1. And insiders in the Republican House said they thought they were going to lose 10 seats. The DCCC has come out and they said it is a dumpster fire. They can't believe what's happened. We might flip seats in Illinois. We might flip 2 seats in Orange County. And we might have one of the strongest minorities Republicans have had in 30 years and almost guarantee that we'll take back the House in 2022.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
The new Trump voters, the newly minted Trump voters are prepared to, load the magazines, man the barricades. What does that mean about the state of the conservative movement to you, if that is a trend?
Well, I think it's telling about the shift that's happened in recent years, which is, and we saw this, throughout maybe the Brett Kavanaugh fight, a number of other fights that happened in recent years, where perhaps old guard conservatives, the kind of voices that are speaking from the mountaintop, would say, oh, well, let's let this one go, that kind of thing. They were willing to accede to a loss with honor, which is not honorable in my opinion. But anyway, that kind of aspect of the movement, they're still around, but that's not the attitude of the newer, younger people who view this as more of a confrontational moment. And I think that that's a big tell about the future of conservatism in the country, which is not going to shy away from confrontational culture war issues. It's going to call things as they see them.
Yes.
They're not going to be deferred at all by the media in a way that makes them not call socialism socialism. And that's not something that's going to go away. And neither is the president. Donald Trump is not going away, everybody. There's this mythical idea among all of his haters in the media that, we don't have to pay attention to him if we get him out of the White House. Well, you may be able to finagle your way into that. But this
Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt inside the Beltway. President's filed a new lawsuit in Pennsylvania. More on that tomorrow after I've read the complaint and the briefs. Arizona, the margin is down to 12,813 in favor of President-elect Biden. There are 46,000 votes left to count. Let's go back to my Veterans Day conversation with Wounded Warrior CERN by the Semper Fi and America's Fund via thefund.org. Joined now by Sergeant Joshua Sweeney, United States Marine Corps. Good morning, Sergeant. Where do I find you this morning?
Good morning. I'm in Portland, Oregon, and Hillsboro, Oregon, more specifically, just to the west.
You're way far away from anyone else I've talked today, so I'm glad to have a Pacific Northwestern person. You're not a Ducks fan, are you? I hope you're a Beaver fan.
No, I actually grew up in Arizona, so I'm more of an ASU fan than anything else. But
okay, we'll take Sun Devils. Tell us about when you were wounded and the nature of your injuries.
Yep, so I was injured October 28th, 2009, while serving with 3rd Battalion, 4th Marines in Afghanistan. On a patrol, stepped on an improvised explosive device, had both of my legs amputated above the knee, some injuries to my arms and my left hand, but nothing too crazy. I guess the biggest thing was just losing both my legs above the knee and having to learn how to work with that.
Now, I want the audience to know I'm talking to an Olympian, so that they won't be too surprised. Congratulations on that. How did you go from losing both of your legs to Sochi as a Paralympian?
Thank you. Yeah, it was it was a lot of work, obviously, but it was mainly due to the people around me, the support that I had. The rehab facility I went to in San Antonio worked with a nonprofit who had run a sled hockey program, and I used to play hockey when I was younger, junior high and high school, and so it was something I thought, well, maybe this could be fun to get back into. So I started up and had a blast, and then it was just a matter of fine-tuning my skills and getting on the team, and there I was in Sochi in 2014.
You know, Sergeant, I can't stress this enough. People who have problems out there listen every year to people like you, and they say, number one, I don't have problems, and number two, I got to get my butt going. So how did you make that transition from, getting blown up and badly, grievously wounded to being an Olympian? I mean, that's a hell of a hill to climb.
Yeah, honestly, support system. I mean, having a support system is huge. The Semper Fi Fund was, this isn't just, I'm just not just saying this, but they really were there from the start. They came and visited right after I was injured in the hospital and asked, how can we help you? And there was a lot of organizations that did that, but Semper Fi Fund was just a little different in that they were like, no, tell us, how can we help you? And they were always there for my family, making sure that they could come visit me and help me to continue to get well, whether that was, emotionally or physically, and to help take care of me while going through this process. And so it was a real smooth transition, as smooth as it can be, just because of the support system that I had and having them to be able to break some of those financial barriers that can be in place when people have to work and you're injured and you're trying to figure it all out, and it's not free to be able to just fly and take care of somebody.
Sergeant, I got to admit, I'm a little teary because I read the note. You scored the winning goal that won the gold medal for Team USA at the Paralympics. I mean, you made the play. You're the guy. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so it was kind of something, you train hard, you train for situations, just like in the military, you just do things over and over and over, and eventually it becomes muscle memory, and that's what you want it to be. And yeah, I was just playing. One of my big roles on the team was to play more of an offensive defense. So if they had the puck in their zone, I would pressure them hard to make sure that they didn't just skate it down the ice. And so I went in and started to pressure the defenseman who had the puck, and he went to pass to somebody to break it out of the zone, and I just put myself right in between him and who he was going to be passing to, caught the puck, skated down, and scored the goal. And it was funny because I don't really remember choosing any specific thing when I was shooting or any specific point. It was just muscle memory took over, and I was gone. So
that is so wild. Do you have film of that?
It's somewhere on the internet, I'm sure. I don't personally.
I got to go find that. Because you're carrying the flag there, just like you were carrying the flag in Afghanistan, and I appreciate that, Sergeant. You have a great Veterans Day. That testimony for Semper Fi Fund is it can be equaled, it can't be topped, and I appreciate your making it.
Well, thank you.
It really can't be topped. What you can really do, though, is call and say, I want to support guys like that. 760-725-3680. 760-725-3680. I've been reading the New York Times story on those who have ambitions to serve in a Biden administration. I contrast that with the ambitions of these men and women who want to get up and run, compete, somehow serve again, who have been lost one or two limbs, have TBI or PTSD. Their ambitions are the one you can support today. Go to thefund.org. Remember, the Bob and Ray Parsons Foundation 1-for-1 match is on. So if you give 100, they'll give 100. You call 760-725-3680, or you go to www.thefund.org, or send snail mail, 825 College Boulevard, Suite 102, PMB 609, Oceanside, California 92057. Come back for hour 3 of today's Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
When you look at what the Democrats have been saying the last couple months, when your opposition tells you what they're going to do, maybe you should believe them. I mean, why we didn't have platoons of people in downtown Detroit and Milwaukee waiting for these criminals for what they've been doing. Just what the con job that has happened with all of a sudden we're winning by hundreds of thousands of ballots. They told us, they said it was going to be a red mirage. And then all of these mail-in ballots are going to come through. Well, what about cross-referencing it with voter registration, cross-referencing it with whether or not these people are alive or not? Let me just take a step back, though, Eric, and I want to just say one thing that's very positive. Republicans did really well. I mean, with all the nonsense that's happening, with the virus, the lockdowns, impeachment, the coup, all the misinformation, the disinformation, all this, we won Florida by 3 points. That was not supposed to happen.
Right.
We are going to win North Carolina. We won Ohio convincingly. We won Iowa convincingly. And the Democrats spent a combined $410 million on failed races in the Senate. Republicans are poised to get 8 to 10 seats in the House, despite being outspent 12-1, Eric, 12-1. And insiders in the Republican House said they thought they were going to lose 10 seats. The DCCC has come out and they said it is a dumpster fire. They can't believe what's happened. We might flip seats in Illinois. We might flip 2 seats in Orange County. And we might have one of the strongest minorities Republicans have had in 30 years and almost guarantee that we'll take back the House in 2022.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian GORKA.
The new Trump voters, the newly minted Trump voters are prepared to, load the magazines, man the barricades. What does that mean about the state of the conservative movement to you, if that is a trend?
Well, I think it's telling about the shift that's happened in recent years, which is, and we saw this, throughout maybe the Brett Kavanaugh fight, a number of other fights that happened in recent years, where perhaps old guard conservatives, the kind of voices that are speaking from the mountaintop, would say, oh, well, let's let this one go, that kind of thing. They were willing to accede to a loss with honor, which is not honorable in my opinion. But anyway, that kind of aspect of the movement, they're still around, but that's not the attitude of the newer, younger people who view this as more of a confrontational moment. And I think that that's a big tell about the future of conservatism in the country, which is not going to shy away from confrontational culture war issues. It's going to call things as they see them.
Yes.
They're not going to be deferred at all by the media in a way that makes them not call socialism socialism. And that's not something that's going to go away. And neither is the president. Donald Trump is not going away, everybody. There's this mythical idea among all of his haters in the media that, we don't have to pay attention to him if we get him out of the White House. Well, you may be able to finagle your way into that, but this is not a situation where that voice is going away in any way, shape, or form.
Donald Trump wasn't, you couldn't ignore him before he was president, and you're not going to be able to ignore him after he's president. Sorry, snowflakes, that's a fact.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
This is Owen Strain for townhall.com. In the film No Country for Old Men, a sheriff played by Tommy Lee Jones recounts a dream. He saw his father riding a horse going on ahead to make a fire somewhere out in all that dark and all that cold, and I knew that whenever I got there, he'd be there. The Coen brothers film wasn't political, but these words resonate today. Hopelessness abounds, lockdowns continue, marriages suffer, children languish, and politics divide. Many years ago, a wise man said to his followers that they should love their neighbor. Christ's words promise to galvanize us in the wake of a bitter election. We must love our neighbor in divided days. We should not fall prey to hate or insufferability. We should go on ahead and make a fire somewhere in the dark and work to prepare a better country for our children and for citizens yet to be born. I'm Owen Strain.
The Pepperdine Graduate School of Public Policy, impacting policy decisions today, preparing public leaders for tomorrow. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
Republican split, you'll really get a kick out of this. This is what are called news organizations. GOP splits over Trump's false election claims, unfounded fraud allegations. That's the headline. So what you understand is that our mainstream media do not even make a pretense any longer of being a news organization. This is as worrisome as any election result. What's the next? The fourth. Associated Press, which is supposed to be raw news, right? The Associated Press is GOP divided over Trump's baseless claims of election fraud. Even the next one, Fox News. Stephen Colbert says he's heartbroken by Trump's voter fraud. Let's see. Voter fraud speech. He tried to poison American democracy. Okay, that's Fox News, obviously taking a critical view, presumably. And anyway, then Al Jazeera, then NPR, Trump speech Thursday, false claims of fraud. Okay, now do you understand how the news is delivered to the American people? Even if the president is wrong, this is not the way you present an item. President charges fraud. That's the headline. That's the honest headline. President charges baseless fraud is an opinion. How do they know it's baseless? Really, how do they know it's baseless?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Professor, how does this end?
Well, look, so here's the problem. We're all focused on the counts. And it looks like President Trump may lose Georgia to Joe Biden because of the count coming out of Atlanta. And then he may well lose Pennsylvania because of the count coming out of Philadelphia. I think he's going to pick up Arizona, but he may well lose Nevada out of the count coming out of Clark County. But the problem is the significant trigger event was not the count, but the verification of which ballots were legitimately cast in order to be counted. And Republicans in a lot of those jurisdictions were blocked out of the verification process, the signature verification process, the legitimacy of the absentee ballots that have been collected and harvested, and oftentimes in violation of state law. But once that threshold decision had been done and the ballot is separated from the envelope that allowed you to verify the legitimacy of the ballot, then you can't unravel the question of whether those votes were, which votes were illegitimate and cast or who they were cast for. And so unless the court would be willing to step in Pennsylvania and say, because we can't determine, we know that there were illegitimate votes cast, but we can't determine which way they went, and therefore we can't invalidate the election. Unless the court's willing to invalidate the election, as it did 2 years ago in North Carolina when there was illegal ballot harvesting that was conducted.
So you believe that when all the challenges, let's just stick to Pennsylvania for a moment, when all the legal challenges are exhausted, the U.S. Supreme Court will not likely even pick up the case?
Morning glory, America. It's Hugh Hewitt inside the Beltway on this Veterans Day 2020. A day I put aside most of politics. I do have to play Chuck Schumer, cut number 1.
Now we take Georgia, and then we change the world. Yeah! I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Mr. Schumer? Now we take Georgia, and then we change America.
Well, I play that 3 times a day just to make sure that everybody in Georgia understands they have to register to vote before December 7th in the 2 runoffs on January 5 that determine the future of this country. Whether or not, for example, the military is funded completely. Play it one more time. Chuck Schumer talking to Georgians everywhere. Cut number 1.
Now we take Georgia, and then we change the world. Yeah! I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Mr. Schumer? Now we take Georgia, and then we change America.
That's going to be 3 times a day on this show forever. But today is Veterans Day. It's my annual Semper Fi and America's Fun show. Semper Fi Fund was begun in 2004 as grievously wounded Marines returned to Camp Pendleton, and a group of Marine Corps wives gathered around a kitchen table and they said, we have to do something. All these years later, they have raised $288 million and served 25,000 wounded warriors and their families across all of the branches through the Semper Fi and America's Fund, www.thefund.org, www.thefund.org, or you can call 760-725-3680. Let's talk now with our next representative of thefund.org. Joined now by Sergeant Joshua Yarborough of the United States Marine Corps. Sergeant Yarborough, where do I find you this morning?
From Port Neches, Texas.
Okay, so another Texan. You're my second Texan today. Tell me, when were you injured and the nature of your wounds?
June 2011, I stepped on an ID. I lost both my legs right below the knee. I lost the index finger, a lot of muscle in my left arm, nerve damage. The tip of my thumb on the left hand.
Well, it's almost been a decade. How is your recovery going, and is it ongoing, and how has Semper Fi Fund helped you?
I would say that it is still ongoing. Physically, I don't think I'm ever going to get any better, but the mental aspect of it is always working. You know, you have your bad days and your good days. You know, I have a lot more good days now than I do bad, and that's the right way to be going, I guess, because there was a lot of dark days in the beginning, and they're far few between now, I guess.
I've heard some of your colleagues who've been helped out by Semper Fi Fund say direction is everything. So that sounds like the direction is good. How did Semper Fi Fund find you, and what have they done for you?
You know, they got in contact with my wife first in the beginning, and I'm not exactly sure how it all started. She came to me crying, and I'm not sure if they were the ones that set her up at the Fisher House and stuff whenever I first got injured and got the family out there, paid for hotel rooms for some of them. And then, you know, they've helped me with purchased me a sled to play sled hockey. And that has been one of the major things that has turned me around personally. I never thought I'd be able to play a physical sport again. I tried to play basketball, and it really wasn't my thing. But as far as physical contact goes, that really gives me something to look forward to every week.
Where do you play sled hockey in Austin? I mean, Texas. I mean, is there a rink? Is that what you do?
Yes, I play in the mall in Houston, Memorial City.
That is
team there, the Houston Hellhounds. We play every Saturday for practice.
Oh, that is terrific. I didn't know that. So who persuaded you that sled hockey was realistic and a good thing to do to work off stress and keep moving in the right direction? Who was that, a Semper Fi Fund idea, or was it one of your buddies in the Marine Corps?
It was kind of both. In my therapist in San Antonio. I first went out in San Antonio, and I was in a dark place, and I just wasn't ready to go for it. I had too much stuff going on, and I couldn't focus in on it. And so I only went to one practice. And then I got released and everything, came home down to where I live. And, you know, after 2 years or something, after being retired, I was at my son's football practice. I brought him over there and just sitting there thinking, like, I got to find something to do. And I wondered if there's a team nearby. And I went out, and there was a team in Houston. I live about 103 miles away from where they practice. So every Saturday I drive. My wife and I go, 206-mile round trip to go play.
Well, that's important. I mean, but how important is that to you? I mean, that sounds important to me.
It's extremely important. I mean, the stress of the week and everything. One of the things, the hardest things for me to get through is like always being in my own head about the day of my injury. It's always there somehow. And I try to think about it a lot less now. It used to always be, what you do? What could you have done differently that wouldn't have caused this? whenever I'm on the ice, I don't think about anything except what I'm doing there. There is no. We got affected by the hurricane that hit Southeast Texas, really Louisiana, but we did get major winds from it that had some damages. Had to do some evacuations, and they gave us money to go to a hotel room and evacuate, get out of the path of the storm, and reimburse us for the groceries that we lost.
See, that's exactly what they do, and when people hear it from someone like you, Sergeant Yarborough, they know that they are investing in a terrific organization. Thank you for your service, continued success on the ice and with your family, and have a great Veterans Day.
Thank you. You do, sir.
I hope everyone has a great Veterans Day, especially these men and women who have been wounded in the service of the United States or injured or with disease. Let me tell you, your gift can be called into 760-725-3680, or you can go to thefund.org, or the snail mail address is 825 College Boulevard, 825 College Boulevard, 825 College Boulevard, Suite 102, PMB, that's as in Peter Mary Baker, PMB 609, Oceanside, beautiful Oceanside, California, 92057. More conversations with some of the 25,000 plus warriors and their families that have been served by the Semper Fi Fund since they got going in 2003. Let me check markets, brought to you by andrewandtodd.com. Every day I do this, Andrew and Todd want you to be aware that interest rates remain at historic lows, but they're not going to be there forever. The 10-year Treasury this morning is at 0.97% on 11/11/20, and it's ticking up. Yesterday was 0.96. That means interest rates eventually are going to get off the basement floor that they're in, and it's going to be more expensive to buy a house, more expensive to refinance a house. Don't get left behind. Go to andrewandtodd.com. Andrew Del Rey, Todd Avakian, longtime friends of mine, longtime friends of the show. Call them at 888-888-1172. Yesterday, the Dow was up 262 points. The NASDAQ was off 159, and the S&P was down 4.5 points. This morning in Europe, England is up 1%. Germany is up 0.5%. I think it's going to be a good day on the market. Evenly, it was a rotation of money out of NASDAQ and into the Dow as the virus vaccine arrived on the horizon. Thanks to Operation Warp Speed and the scientists around the world, and the particular group of scientists at Pfizer, more therapeutics from Johnson & Johnson. Stuff is happening. A year from now, we'll look back at this terrible year. But you know what? Our veterans that we are serving, by a contribution to Semper Fi Fund, won't be looking back and saying that was the worst year. The worst year is the year they got injured or blown up or shot, and they have come back, and they keep coming back thanks to people like you who helped them. The news of the morning is that in Arizona, President Trump has narrowed the gap behind President-elect Joe Biden to 12,813 votes, and 46,000 remain left to count. A new lawsuit's been filed in Pennsylvania. I'll update it. There's an editorial in the Wall Street Journal this morning about why the existing Pennsylvania lawsuit needs to go forward. And the other argument, it's not moot. People forget there are down ballot races that are affected by all of those ballots. But I come back and I keep focused on Semper Fi and America's Fund. Head over to thefund.org and be as generous as you can. Once a year on Veterans Day, I ask you, please open up your hearts and wallets to help Semper Fi Fund do their work at thefund.org, thefund.org. Come right back to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
Professor, how does this end?
Well, look, so here's the problem. We're all focused on the counts. And it looks like President Trump may lose Georgia to Joe Biden because of the count coming out of Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And then he may well lose Pennsylvania because of the count coming out of Philadelphia. I think he's going to pick up Arizona, but he may well lose Nevada out of the count coming out of Clark County. But the problem is the significant trigger event was not the count, but the verification of which ballots were legitimately cast in order to be counted. Mm-hmm. And Republicans in a lot of those jurisdictions were blocked out of the verification process. the signature verification process, the legitimacy of the absentee ballots that have been collected and harvested, and oftentimes in violation of state law. But once that threshold decision had been done and the ballot is separated from the envelope that allowed you to verify the legitimacy of the ballot, then you can't unravel the question of whether those votes were, which votes were illegitimate and cast or who they were cast for. And so unless the court would be willing to step in Pennsylvania and say, because we can't determine, we know that there were illegitimate votes cast, but we can't determine which way they went, and therefore we can't invalidate the election. Unless the court's willing to invalidate the election, as it did 2 years ago in North Carolina when there was illegal ballot harvesting that was conducted.
So you believe that when all the challenges, let's just stick to Pennsylvania for a moment, when all the legal challenges are exhausted, the U.S. Supreme Court will not likely even pick up the case?
I think that's right.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
This is Owen Strain for townhall.com. In the film No Country for Old Men, a sheriff played by Tommy Lee Jones recounts a dream. He saw his father riding a horse going on ahead to make a fire somewhere out in all that dark and all that cold, and I knew that whenever I got there, he'd be there. The Coen brothers film wasn't political, but these words resonate today. Hopelessness abounds, lockdowns continue, marriages suffer, children languish, and politics divide. Many years ago, a wise man said to his followers that they should love their neighbor. Christ's words promise to galvanize us in the wake of a bitter election. We must love our neighbor in divided days. We should not fall prey to hate or insufferability. We should go on ahead and make a fire somewhere in the dark and work to prepare a better country for our children and for citizens yet to be born. I'm Owen Strain.
The Pepperdine Graduate School of Public Policy, impacting policy decisions today, preparing public leaders for tomorrow. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Wait a minute. Why, if we saw voter fraud and if we have examples of voter fraud, why wouldn't that work out? And you're saying the states have that much power.
Well, a couple things. Here's what can happen is this. Yeah, states do have a lot. They have almost all the power, but the federal government's not just an innocent bystander. The DOJ can come in and prosecute voter fraud, and they should. The DOJ Civil Rights Division can come and investigate whether or not there was widespread shenanigans. And remember, state officials can be investigated as well. Here's the thing is that these county recorders have gone to jail before. Vote counters go to jail. That's not above, the DOJ can go do that. And so that's what
don't you think that they will and had better do that for the sake of the nation?
I don't know what Bill Barr is doing, Eric. Okay. I don't know where the Durham report is. I don't know where the indictments are. I don't know why Antifa people aren't being arrested. And I don't know why the DOJ is not going into these states and at least saying, we have eyes on you. Okay. I don't know what, because I'm going to tell you right now, the Michigan, election security division is not going to prosecute any of that. So here's what can happen, though. If the DOJ starts to open up a lot of these cases, it makes it a lot easier for the Trump campaign to then file a lawsuit with a circuit court judge or a federal judge outside of the DOJ. So then the judge can get involved in exactly what can happen. Now, judges have almost unilateral power now in these elections, okay? The judges are the final voice. Now, if the Democrats in Michigan don't like it, they can appeal to the Supreme Court. They might just kick it back down to the federal court. For example, if the DOJ starts to make a case in Michigan that there's a lot of voter fraud and voter
Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt on this Veterans Day 2020. I am urging you to please give generously. In the middle of all this political nightmare, in the middle of the recount, in the middle of a very abrasive year, we got to remember the veterans, and especially the wounded warriors, are neither red nor blue. They are red, white, and blue, and they have served us, whether left, right, or center, and we have to take care of them when they're wounded, and the Semper Fi America's Fund does that through thefund.org. Let's go back to my next thefund.org guest. Joined now by Master Gunnery Sergeant Roger Brown, United States Marine Corps. Hello, Sergeant. Welcome. It's good to have you on, Gunny. Where do I find you today?
I am in Chesapeake Beach, Maryland.
Okay, in Maryland. You're not too far from where I am, inside the Beltway. So how is the Semper Fi Fund helping you? What is the nature of the illness, injury, or recovery?
So I was diagnosed with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis in May of 2016. ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease. I medically retired from the Marine Corps in April of 2017. So Semper Fi Fund has helped me in various ways for taking care of my caregiver, my wife, Pamela Brannon, and also with Team Semper Fi. They've helped me this year especially get out of the house and do some golfing events and get better at golfing while I still can.
Well, Gunny, I've had some experience with ALS. Augie Nieto is a colleague or an acquaintance of mine, and I've had some friends have it, and it is a hell of a disease. How is Semper Fi Fund helping you with it?
I mean, the big thing is I think the people who have a positive mental attitude and a belief in God do a lot better with this disease. So Semper Fi Fund has helped me keep a positive mental attitude because I do their virtual golf lessons every week that I can, and bringing camaraderie and talking to other veterans is great personal positive attitude, and seeing other stories of people who've been blown up and everything and still recovering through sports and being able to do things, and it motivates me to do more.
My notes tell me you did 4 combat tours and 7 deployments, and I'm impressed by that. I really am, and I'm thankful for that. But from my experience with people who have ALS, Pam, your wife, and your children are heroes. How are they doing?
They're doing good. My daughter's a senior this year, and so it's hard for her to be doing her senior year, but she just got accepted to the University of Mississippi, so she's looking forward to that and to continue her life. She's been upset this year. I've lost a few friends from ALS, so every one that we lose is harder for my children because they see the reality of what I'm expected in my life. So it's hard for them, but
well, everyone who's listening is going to pray for them and for you. ALS is just, I mean, it's very difficult, but she's going to Ole Miss. That's got to give you some hope. I mean, she's going to know something about football, and she's going to have a great education.
Yes. I mean, we did a tour a couple of weeks ago of the University of Mississippi, Ole Miss, and she loves it. Her aunt's an alumni, and she's just can't wait to go. It was her first choice, and she was very lucky to get that and get selected and be able to go.
Well, Sergeant, I wish you a great Veterans Day tomorrow and a fond farewell to your daughter next year. She'll come back and forth, I'm sure. But fight on. I know you will. And our prayers and hopes are with you, as is the Semper Fi Fund support. Thank you for joining me this morning to tell us about that.
Thank you for having me.
So you humbled America. Are you feeling sorry for yourself? And you got Major Sergeant Roger Brandon, the United States Marine Corps, done all that combat tour, and now he's battling Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS. Augie Nieto has been a guest on this show. I lost my friend Jerry Kushner to ALS. I've lost a lot of friends to ALS, and but I've got, like Augie Nieto, shows you can live and live and live and love and flourish and prosper with the disease, and we pray for that for Sergeant Brandon. I know that the Semper Fi Fund is helping him, and you can help them help him by calling the fund right now at 760-725-3680. We have no problems, you and I. No matter how dreary our day is or difficult, we have no problems. The people who do are helped by thefund.org, www.thefund.org. Come right back to the Hugh Hewitt Show on Veterans Day 2020.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. In the film No Country for Old Men, a sheriff played by Tommy Lee Jones recounts a dream. He saw his father riding a horse going on ahead to make a fire somewhere out in all that dark and all that cold, and I knew that whenever I got there, he'd be there. The Coen brothers film wasn't political, but these words resonate today. Hopelessness abounds, lockdowns continue, marriages suffer, children languish, and politics divide. Many years ago, a wise man said to his followers that they should love their neighbor. Christ's words promise to galvanize us in the wake of a bitter election. We must love our neighbor in divided days. We should not fall prey to hate or insufferability. We should go on ahead and make a fire somewhere in the dark and work to prepare a better country for our children and for citizens yet to be born. I'm Owen Strait.
The Pepperdine Graduate School of Public Policy, impacting policy decisions today, preparing public leaders for tomorrow. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian GORKA.
Here's the tweet from this afternoon. Is anyone archiving these Trump sycophants for when they try to downplay or deny their complicity in the future? I foresee decent probability of many deleted tweets, writings, and photos in the future. Why are you cataloging supporters of the president? There's 70 million of us. What are you going to try and do, AOC? Because we're ready for you. Got that, Media Matters? Somebody who's really been upping his game, we always like him, but he's been getting even more heavy and meaty, is Greg Gutfeld. Let's play a little video cut from our buddy Greg on the issue at hand. Video cut 7, Eric.
I'm not sure if this is a first world or third world country anymore if we can't handle this. And the thing is, I keep thinking, all right, who made this bed? Let's say there isn't anything illegal going on. It's just mere incompetence. But the Democrats for 4 years have said that Trump is an apocalyptic threat to our nation, to our species. He has to go. So that's going to elevate suspicion among everybody else that likes Trump that there will be fraud. Because if you're that emotionally invested in getting rid of somebody, and especially the hard left who are emotionally invested in politics, they're going to do anything that they can. They will cheat. And your suspicions are valid because if they think he's Hitler, cheating is completely justified.
That last sentence is the key.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
David is in Tampa, Florida. David, you're on the Larry Elder Show.
Yeah, Larry, I used to believe in free and fair elections, but at this point I don't. I mean, Trump was just elected in the biggest landslide in the history of this country. He received more votes in this election on Tuesday than any presidential candidate has ever received up until now, up until, of course, Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm.
So Trump won the state of Florida by over 1 million. He got over 1 million more votes than he did 4 years ago in the state of Florida.
Right.
Am I to believe that Joe Biden, who can't draw more than 10 people to his rallies, can actually receive 800,000 more votes than Hillary Clinton did 4 years ago? This is an atrocity, and the American people are not going to stand for this. At the end of the day, they have stolen this. 138,339 ballots show up in the middle of the night at 4 a.m. in Michigan, and all of a sudden Joe Biden leads it. 122,000 show up in the state of Wisconsin in the middle of the night at 4 a.m., and all of a sudden now he leads it. He was up by over 700,000 votes in the state of Pennsylvania, and miraculously, they're just finding just enough, just like Al Franken found in 2008 in Minnesota Senate race.
And David, imagine if this were the shoe on the other foot. Imagine if all of a sudden things were reversed. Those guys went to bed.
The American people would not.
Yeah, if those guys went to bed on election night thinking that they won Pennsylvania, and they wake up and all of a sudden their guy is losing, they would be going absolutely crazy.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
Okay, there's two big fights. Number one, we have to be relentless. We have to be persistent. We have to be on top of all of the fraud and find the truth all across the country. We are not going to back down. We are going to continue to dive into some of these numbers. I have them up here, which they scream irregularities. Just breaking in the last 20 minutes, Fulton County in Georgia.
As usual, America. Hi, it's Hugh Hewitt inside the beltway on this Veterans Day 2020. You are just being remarkable in your response to our appeal to support Semper Fi and America's Fund. It has assisted 25,000 combat wounded, critically ill, catastrophically injured service members, veterans, and their families, with raising over $288 million since their launch in 2003 around a kitchen table in Camp Pendleton, as injured Marines were returning from the Afghanistan theater, and they just knew they had to do something in preparing for war in Iraq, and they did something extraordinary. They did an American thing. They organized themselves into this remarkable group of patriots who are serving and have been serving for 19 years now, these just amazing men and women. Let's go back to our next thefund.org guest. Joined now by Corporal Daniel Magdaleno, Marines. Corporal, I didn't have on my cheat sheet here whether you were Army and Marines, and there's nothing worse than getting them confused for both of them. So welcome. It's good to have you, and happy Veterans Day to you.
Thank you.
Where do I find you this morning?
I am from Hollister, California.
Oh, I know Hollister. That's, made famous by the movie. When and where were you wounded, and how's your recovery going?
2003, and I'm doing great.
How has the Semper Fi Fund helped you?
They've been awesome. Somehow they've always been there when I've needed them. I think I started with them about 7 years ago. I was getting evicted from my home at the time with a newborn, and somehow, my VA social worker got in contact with Semper Fi Fund at the time because I was looking for a family homeless shelter to keep my family together. And Mrs. Christine Jones, my case manager at Semper Fi, called me one day about 3 days before I was supposed to be kicked out of the house. And first thing she said, she was from Semper Fi Fund, and we're here to help you. And what do you need now, and how can I get you into a new home? And that same day, she got she came through with a U-Haul because I didn't have no means of transportation at the time, and told me to basically go to. I guess she had contacted an apartment complex and was able to get me into an apartment.
Corporal Magdalene, that's pretty low to be evicted with a newborn. And how are you doing now?
We're doing great. I'm doing great. My wife, a matter of fact, funny story, my wife, from that experience, she was going to school at the time. She was working and then going to school, but she had to stop working, and that was a whole case of our financial issues. We lost that income because we had a newborn. But from that situation, how Miss Christine Jones helped us, made us feel better that things were going to be okay. She became a case manager, and then she became a social worker. She went to school. She changed her whole degree or whole career path to help out veterans, and she interned at the VA hospital. And yeah, that's what she does.
I love you telling that because I try and stress to my listeners, Semper Fi Fund helps not just the wounded warrior, but their family. So it basically changed the trajectory of her life too.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What are you doing for a living now?
I am going to barber school. As a matter of fact, thanks to Semper Fi Fund through their apprentice program.
Oh, that's terrific. How do you like it?
I love it. I mean, it gives me the flexibility to kind of do my own hours. I just finished my school part, so it's just now a matter of finding a barbershop to go into or opening up my own barbershop. But it gives me the flexibility to do my own hours, to be with my son, my wife, and those days where I'm having issues mentally and physically.
Well, Corporal, when I get to Hollister next, I'm going to come find you because, guys who can do this are in short supply. I mean, really in short supply, but the virus must have made this a little bit difficult to get your training done.
Yeah, so that's been an issue. Luckily, I was almost done when the virus hit. All I needed was basically take my exam, my final state board, licensing exam. So I had to wait until June or July to do that. I was able to do it finally. Finally got my license just a couple weeks ago, matter of fact. And
Congratulations. You're going to be a heck of ambassador for Semper Fi Fund. You got anyone in the chair, you're going to be able to tell them, hey, have you heard about the Semper Fi Fund? And so it's been a long time. It's been 10 plus years for you. Have they ever said no, or have they always said yes?
Never. It's always been, how can we help you? And without even asking, they're there. They're helping.
Well, Corporal, that is a great and inspiring story. I'm going to end the program with that today. Thank you for all you've done. Continued success. I hope I see you in Hollister, and say hello to your wife and blessings on her too. That's a terrific career change.
Thank you, sir.
I want everyone to help out Semper Fi Fund. I've got one more segment with Karen Hetherington and Wendy Lethin coming up, but you've heard a dozen different injured Marines and soldiers, sailors, airmen, as well as the Marines who've been served by the Semper Fi Fund. You can donate online at thefund.org, www.thefund.org. You can call 760-725-3680. It's best to do it on Veterans Day. I mean, it's just an annual ritual for me. It should be an annual ritual for you. 760-725-3680. Or just remember www.thefund.org. I've tweeted it out. People can remember thefund.org. They changed their name this year. If you just joined us, same critical mission, but the new name, Semper Fi and America's Fund. And they honor all of the branches because they've served wounded warriors from all of them, 25,000 combat wounded, critically ill, catastrophically injured service members, veterans, and their families with over $288 million. Rapid assistance, no red tape, lifetime support. They're there for the duration. And they got started in 2003, and they're not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. As long as I'm on the radio, I'm going to be talking about them every Veterans Day. A-plus rating, only one of two veteran nonprofits to receive that from Charity Watch. 4 stars from Charity Navigator for 10 years in a row. Only 2% of the thousands of charities in America, or tens of thousands of charities in America, get 4 stars from Charity Navigator for 10 years. They've got the platinum seal of transparency from GuideStar. And it's because their overhead is 7% since inception. It's not going to salaries. It's not going to commercials. They don't do that. They talk to people. The Marines take care of their own, and that word is spread out to the Army, Navy, and Air Force that they can get their people taken care of through Americans Fund. And there is a Double Down for Veterans match campaign underway, as it is when the Renee and Bob Parsons Foundation, Bob and Renee Parsons Foundation matches donations up to $10 million through December 31st. They've been doing COVID response. They are uniquely positioned to support our service members who've been wounded and veterans during the pandemic with these 16 years of experience as a virtual not-for-profit dealing with crisis prepared them to do. A large number of their service members are facing unemployment, limited access to medical care, personal necessities are in short supply. They've got increased social isolation, but Semper Fi Fund is doing all sorts of virtual stuff to help them. They've got meals, grocery, provisions, financial assistance for those who've been laid off by the virus, transportation costs for those who are not able to care for themselves during the virus, lodging when needed for hospital stays when family members have to go to surgery, educational activities and materials to assist the family members who are at home with the wounded warrior who's recovering and they got to do their schooling from home now. They've got bedside financial assistance, adaptive housing, adaptive transportation, specialized equipment. They do it all. They do it all at the Semper Fi and America's Fund, and you can help them do that at thefund.org, or you can call 760-725-3680. I remind you, you can go to thefund.org. Couple of bits of news. I want to play for you 2 bits of audio. This is Secretary of State Mike Pompeo yesterday, cut number 3.
Hi. Is the State Department currently preparing to engage with the Biden transition team? And if not, at what point does a delay hamper a smooth transition or pose a risk to national security?
There will be a smooth transition to a second Trump administration. All right, we're ready. The world is watching what's taking place here. We're going to count all the votes. When the process is complete, there'll be electors selected. There's a process. The Constitution lays it out pretty clearly. The world should have every confidence that the transition necessary to make sure that the State Department is functional today, successful today, and successful with the president who's in office on January 20th, mid-afternoon, will also be successful. I went through a transition on the front, and I've been on the other side of this. I'm very confident that we will do all the things that are necessary to make sure that the government, the United States government, will continue to perform its national security function as we go forward.
So you believe there's widespread voter fraud, that the reports that we're getting from Pennsylvania, from Michigan, showing vote totals in massive leads or significant leads with 99% reporting are going to be overturned, and that the United States failed to conduct a fraudulent free election?
Rich, I'm the Secretary of State. I'm getting calls from all across the world. These people are watching our election. They understand that we have a legal process. They understand that this takes time. Right? It took us 37 plus days in an election back in 2000. We conducted a successful transition then. I'm very confident that we will count, and we must count every legal vote. We must make sure that any vote that wasn't lawful ought not be counted. That dilutes your vote if it's done improperly. Got to get that right. When we get it right, we'll get it right. We're in good shape.
Should foreign leaders not be calling
We're in good shape.
President-elect Biden? Who is next?
So I wanted to play that for you, even though it's my Veterans Day show, because the people who have earned the title fake news, and some people in the broadcast media and the print media have earned fake news, ran with the joke at the beginning, who were confident of transitioning to a second Trump term, and then left all the rest off, in which it's clear you're talking about no matter what happens, we're fine, we'll transition. I've been at the front end of this, I know what it's like. It's clear whether it's Vice President, whether it's President-elect Biden or President Trump pulls off the miracle on ice and gets the Supreme Court case that he wants out of Pennsylvania, not the first one, the second one. I don't see a path. I don't. But a lot of people have climbed El Capitan freeform, and I can't do that either. And no one thought that could be done, and they did it. So I'm not saying no. I'm just saying I don't see the path. But the Secretary of State said exactly what he ought to have said. Meanwhile, the radical in Georgia, Raphael Warnock, he said this about court packing, cut number 5.
Was that if Democrats take majority, there would be court packing on the Supreme Court or the federal benches, as well as statehood approved for D.C. and Puerto Rico. So I wanted to ask what your stance is on those, 3 kind of issues.
I think that they're trying to divide us again. And it's really sad because at the end of the day, e pluribus unum, out of
all right, stop. How hard is it to say I'm against court packing and I'm against D.C. statehood and I'm against Puerto Rico statehood? By the way, I'm not against Puerto Rico statehood. That's perfectly legit. D.C. is unconstitutional, and expanding the Supreme Court destroys the republic. Raphael Warnock is a radical leftist. Radical leftist, Georgia. Listen to me. I'm coming back with a little bit more on the Semper Fi Fund, but let me remind you, ReliefFactor.com. All right? You've got ReliefFactor.com on your shelf. Don't leave home without it. I'm going downtown today, and I've already taken my ReliefFactor.com. Took it the first hour. I remind you about it 2 more hours because you got to have support for the temporary relief of minor aches and pains, whether you're getting older or whether you're just exercising a lot more. Going to be raining all day in D.C. as the tail end of the hurricane gets up here on Veterans Day. But ReliefFactor.com, even if I slip and fall, as I did the last time I was in D.C., I'll be fine. Come back. I want to wrap up today's Veterans Day show by talking to Wendy Lethine and Karen Hetherington about all their work at the Semper Fi Fund. Stay tuned.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
Republicans split. You'll really get a kick out of this. This is what are called news organizations. GOP splits over Trump's false election claims, unfounded fraud allegations. That's the headline. So what you understand is that our mainstream media do not even make a pretense any longer of being a news organization. This is as worrisome as any election result. What's the next? The fourth. Associated Press, which is supposed to be raw news, right? The Associated Press is GOP divided over Trump's baseless claims of election fraud. Even the next one, Fox News. Stephen Colbert says he's heartbroken by Trump's voter fraud. Let's see. Voter fraud speech. He tried to poison American democracy. Okay, that's Fox News, obviously taking a critical view, presumably. And anyway, then Al Jazeera, then NPR, Trump speech Thursday, false claims of fraud. Okay, now do you understand how the news is delivered to the American people? Even if the president is wrong, this is not the way you present an item. President charges fraud. That's the headline. That's the honest headline. President charges baseless fraud is an opinion. How do they know it's baseless? Really, how do they know it's baseless?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. In the film No Country for Old Men, a sheriff played by Tommy Lee Jones recounts a dream. He saw his father riding a horse going on ahead to make a fire somewhere out in all that dark and all that cold, and I knew that whenever I got there, he'd be there. The Coen brothers film wasn't political, but these words resonate today. Hopelessness abounds, lockdowns continue, marriages suffer, children languish, and politics divide. Many years ago, a wise man said to his followers that they should love their neighbor. Christ's words promise to galvanize us in the wake of a bitter election. We must love our neighbor in divided days. We should not fall prey to hate or insufferability. We should go on ahead and make a fire somewhere in the dark and work to prepare a better country for our children and for citizens yet to be born. I'm Owen Strand.
The Pepperdine Graduate School of Public Policy, impacting policy decisions today, preparing public leaders for tomorrow. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu.
Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
So, George, I don't know how widespread it is. I don't know if it'll change the outcome of the election. But why is everybody so scared just to have a fair election and find out? We gave Al Gore 37 days to run the process before we decided who was going to be president. Why would we not afford the 70.6 million Americans that voted for President Trump the same consideration? If Joe Biden really wants to use
Okay, closing out today's Veterans Show. The Veterans Day show with the Semper Fi Fund team is always special to me. Wendy Lethine is the Vice President of Donor Relations. Karen Hetherington, Senior Case Manager for the Eastern Region. You heard these testimonies. It's always the same. It's always amazing. But Wendy, what do you want the audience, especially the new audience, to know about the Semper Fi Fund and America's Fund, which they all find at thefund.org?
Well, our mission is critical. As you heard from all our service members, and the duty's clear. We need to be there for them, whether it's right from when they were injured through transition or right now with COVID. The need for support for our service members and their families is always there.
I want people to know as well. We talked with the sergeant with ALS. We talked with the Olympic gold medal winning service member. I mean, this is just amazing, and you do it every day, Karen. There have got to be some cases, though, that just refuse to reach out. What do you want to say to them?
Well, I'll say we're going to come find you. We try to stay in very close contact. We pride ourselves on being able to know when a service member is silent, that may be a sign that they need a little extra help. We try to make an extra effort to stay in touch with those, especially our critically ill. We have a lot of people going through cancer treatment during COVID, which is doubly hard. So we're staying in close contact with our cancer patients as well.
So, Karen, would you, because people Yeah, I got an audience that prays a lot and contributes a lot, but they want to know how many people are involved in the caseworker network? How many people have you got working every day to help these wounded warriors and their families?
Well, we all work as a team. We've got about 42 case managers, but we all work as a team. We've got a lot of support staff. There are many people behind the scenes working to make our outreach to service members successful.
And Wendy, what I like to close with, we close with every year. This is a lifetime commitment the Semper Fi Fund and America's Fund has made. This is not a 1 year, 5 year, and you have proven it. It's in 16 years, and you'll be here in 32 years, and probably 64 years, because some of these young men and women are going to be around into their 100 years, and you got to be there for them.
Absolutely, we will be, as long as we have the help from our donors and the support. But we have pledged to be there for a lifetime, Hugh. And as you hear, their needs change, and it ebbs and flows of what they need. And we are there checking in. It's a family. You check in on your family, and that's what we do.
I want to close by saying thanks for setting this up. Thanks to you two ladies who do this twice a year with me, and to everyone that you work with. I just appreciate it so much. You make it possible, and I'll give the information again, but God bless you, and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
You know what I always say after a Semper Fi Fund show, and I know it's Semper Fi Fund and America's Fund, go to www.thefund.org, and my last phone number for them, 760-725-3680. I always say it to the fetching Mrs. Hewitt, we have no problems. And, this week has been sort of scattered for us with the election and the stress. But more stressful for me personally is we had a great interview with Matthew McConaughey that got garbled in the audio. So we've been doing surgery on it and getting it transcribed by Generalissimo and getting it closed captioned. Great fun book, Green Lights. And, that's aggravating. It's happened to me twice in 30 years of broadcast. The other time was with the Dalai Lama, where the sound just couldn't be understood, so you have to go and resurrect it. That's not a problem. That's a challenge. We have no real problems. You listen to these Marines and sailors and soldiers and airmen who are coping with their second decade of recovery or their second year of recovery and how they're doing, and you realize we have no real problems. And as Darrell Royal is quoted as saying in Matthew McConaughey's book, Green Lights, I've never had trouble turning the page. And that is to people like me and other people who have different issues. Just turn the page on whatever's bothering you. But when you're a severely wounded, catastrophically ill veteran, you can't just turn the page. You got to rehab and recover and get going again. And that's where the Semper Fi Fund and the Injured Marine, Semper Fi and America's Fund step in. So one more time, the snail mail address, 825 College Boulevard, Suite 102, PMB 609, that's Peter Mary Baker 609, Oceanside, California 92057. Or go to www.thefund.org or call them at 1-760-725-3680. That's 1-760-725-3680. I thank all of them. Lance Corporal Adams, Sergeant McGuire, Lance Corporal Kerrigan, Sergeant Fagan, Gunny Sergeant Fagan, Sergeant White, Sergeant Burton, Sergeant Stilling, Major Sergeant Brannon, Sergeant Sweeney, Sergeant Yarborough, Corporal Magdaleno, of course, Wendy Lathine and Carrie Hetherington. Thank you all. And thank you, Adam and Harley and Ben and Generalissimo for producing this Veterans Day show 2020. Thank you, America. I'll be back tomorrow on the next Hugh Hewitt Show.